Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm, and you are watching sixth and final part of What If Naruto Has a Broken Dojutsu. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Konoha was already in the early morning hours, at least an hour before dawn. Also, Sarutobi got to work early every day since he was elected as Hokage. He did this in the hopes of getting so much done that he could take the rest of the day off. Yes, it's very unlikely, but it's still possible. As he walked into his office without any plans, he was pleased to see that there was only a small stack of forms neatly stacked in one corner of his desk. Sarutobi almost skipped to his seat as he thought about the orange book that was coming up soon. It looked like a great day today. At least until both of his office doors slammed open at the same time, shaking the room so badly that the papers fell to the floor, losing all of their order. The old Hokage blinked and then looked up. He looked genuinely interested, but his sudden irritation was clear. Who in their right mind would be so stupid as to step into his office and spit out his pap? Right when Sarutobi was about to go on a rant, he looked at the intruder's headband and saw Hakubo's symbol. He quickly stopped himself. He didn't recognize the woman right away, even though she had red hair, wore a black dress like a lot of joint genjutsu seduction experts do, and had a hidden twilight plate on her left bicep. Right away, Sarutobi knew that this person had to be related to the Susuka girl and probably sensei. They looked too much alike to not be related, even without the insignia. A praying mantis, one twice the size of the other, was sitting on each shoulder. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow in his mind. Was that the person who was currently in charge of the mantis contract? Okay. May I help you? Sarutobi asked in a polite but unimportant way, ignoring the fact that his office was now a mess on purpose. Where the hell was his Anbu? You may, was her equally smug answer. My student, my niece, has just been kidnapped. The Hokage nodded. Ah, so that proved that suspicion. Most likely a motherly relation, since she didn't look anything like the pictures he had seen of Susuka Retsu. Wait, what? Kidnapped? Asked Sarutobi again, shocked. During the Chunin exams, when every country and its summons looked over every single detail. Who in the world would be so cocky as to? The redhead kept saying, yes, kidnapped, her teeth clenched as if she didn't want to cry or scream. By Orochimaru. Even as he held back a string of curses, Sarutobi felt his stomach freeze. He then turned his face into an angry, snarling scowl. Hello, Orochimaru. Yes, of course. The cynical part of him said, that makes sense. It was bad enough that his betraying student wanted bad things to happen in his home country, but to involve shinobi from other villages in his evil plans as well? When I had the chance, I should have killed him. Sarutobi leaned back in his chair and looked very focused. His mind was working hard to process this new information. This didn't make sense at all. Why would Orochimaru become so interested in bloodline limits all of a sudden? The Snake Master had said that his only goal was to be master of all the jutsu in the world in the last conversation he had with his renegade disciple, if that was even possible. In a way, even his horrible research into immortality was just a way for him to make sure he lived long enough to learn a lot of different skills. Even the attack on Team 7 was perfect for that situation. The Sharingan, which could instantly remember physical movements like hand seals, and then the Kyokagen, once the snake knew it existed, were both perfect for the job. That being said, the Gensmi. What good could that do? Oh, it was strong. One of the three great dojutsu, no less, but it was based on genjutsu and couldn't help Orochimaru with what he said it would do. What in the world was that guy doing? The almost hysterical Jizenka asked, well? As she watched, the Hokage worked quickly to figure out what was going on. But this was her niece, her family. The only family she still had. She had to understand. While she spoke, Sarutobi shut her out and thought very quickly. This was bad news. He already had to deal with a lot of bad news. The newest intelligence reports he got, mostly from Jiraiya, strongly suggested that there would be more secret operations in the hidden villages of Sand and Sound. That was scary. Their obvious desire to keep things secret meant they were planning something big. Like the kind of big that usually led to great shinobi world wars. Sarutobi wasn't sure that Orochimaru's sudden reappearance was just a coincidence. The old cage finally let out a sigh and looked up from where he was sitting to meet Jizenka's eyes. I apologize. As you've probably noticed, we've been having some difficulties with Orochimaru ourselves lately. The Twilight Kunoichi laughed out loud, clearly seeing through the old man's weak attempt at humor. She pointed to the brighter of the two mantises on her shoulder and said, "One of my summons here has quite the details of his romp through that forest of yours. One thing in particular kind of stood out, though. What was it again?" "Oh yes," she wondered before narrowing her eyes at him again, and her tone lost all of its playful banter. "Something about a pair of silver eyes." Sarutobi thought his heart had stopped for a split second. She understands. He realized quickly, and he was barely able to hide the look on his face. After that, the feeling was gone. Even though he was found out, he still had a job to do. He blinked and said, "Silver eyes?" He looked like he was genuinely confused. Anyone else would have gone along with it. Jizenka snarled, "Don't play dumb with me, Hokage-san." He spat out the less polite honorific like a curse, finally losing his cool. No longer did it matter that the man in front of her was one of the strongest shinobi in recent history. What mattered now was her niece and how this jerk was getting in the way of them being together. "I already know for sure that this village has one of the great Dojutsu. You're probably trying to keep this, Kyokagen, a secret for as long as possible, and I don't blame you. But when that gets in the way of me seeing my only family. Let me explain to you, Hokage, in clear detail, exactly what my summon saw happen yesterday." Naruto sighed again. He had to leave this forest so soon. He was worried about the Teme and Sakura-chan. Their health kept getting worse. They both had high fevers and were moving around a lot while they slept. If things kept going this way, he might have to leave the forest to get them medical help instead of taking the test. He frowned and put that thought to the side, turning his attention to something else. He needed that training yesterday. Taking control of the fox's chakra hadn't been easy. His chakra reserves were probably 3 times normal, which made his already bad chakra control even worse. He'd had to start all over again. However, the skills he had access to at the moment or would soon have were pretty cool. For example, sending shockwaves through your punches that left huge holes where you hit was sick. When we get out of here, he thought, I'm going to kick Kakashi Sensei's ass for giving us those stupid papers. He almost laughed at the thought. After thinking of some pleasant, though unlikely, images, Naruto was about to go back to being quiet when there was an explosion in the forest. The blonde flinched, shocked, and then sped towards it. The first level of his traps had just gone off. He didn't realize it right away. If the second level hadn't gone off at the same time, back, he might not have even known. But it had, and it did, and now it had his full attention. The third round then went off, and all of a sudden Naruto was wondering if all of his preparations were enough. 4 explosions in a row? And the person responsible was still alive? 5? All of a sudden, Naruto thought he might need to write his team a note to repay them for all the tags he had borrowed. It was pretty scary how many Sasuke had on him, who knew the Uchiha was such a firecracker. As Naruto jumped to his feet and drew a pair of kunai, he kept his eyes on the farthest edge of the clearing. Based on all the explosions, that was where his target was most likely to appear. There was a 6th explosion, which was the last line of defense before the clearing. Dust, smoke, and debris flew in, and a lone, shrouded figure walked calmly into the clearing. Naruto's grips tightened as he thought about it. The figure was too tall to be Shizuka, and the last thing he knew, Orochimaru had his arm out. Then he could see. It was a young man, not that much older than him, but he looked very sick. His skin was almost as pale as a corpse, maybe he didn't get out much? And he had shoulder length silver, white hair and piercing green eyes. In the middle of his forehead were 2 big red circles, the same color that lined the bottom of his eyes. They reminded Naruto of the tattoos the Inuzukas had. Do you get the idea? Still, Naruto knew this wasn't going to end well. The fact that the guy was looking him over and over, as if he were going to judge him, made him feel even worse. Your name is Uzumaki Naruto? The pale boy finally spoke, and his tone was both statement and question. What? Have you also got a grudge against me? The blonde bit out, pointing one kunai in a dangerous way while his body moved into a beginning Kaken stance. The boy, whoever he was, didn't seem interested. He just stood there with his arms hanging loosely at his sides. My name is Kimimaro. He only said, I was told to find you. He didn't like this as much as he thought he did. Ordered. By whom? Orochimaru. Sama, was his honest answer again. He didn't even try to hide his allegiance. He wants you to copy my bloodline limit, the Shikatsumiku of the Kagaya clan. It will be a gift from my master. It made Naruto's blood run cold that this guy had just said out loud that he was loyal to the snake freak. But for him to talk about giving up his own bloodline limit like it wasn't even important. He felt sick to his stomach at the thought of Orochimaru wanting him to do what he was saying. A week ago, he would have probably taken Orochimaru up on his offer with a smile. But now, just the thought of Orochimaru wanting him to do it made him sick to his stomach. This was especially true since he didn't even have the Kyokagen to begin with because it had been put into dormancy so that he could heal. What if I responded with, no? The blonde growled, her red eyes getting dangerously narrow. For a short time, nothing happened. Kimimaro just stood there with a blank look on his face. The Kaguya's arms both spasmed, and there was a violent twitch so strong that the bones in both forearms snapped, and the sharp ends tore out of the flesh of his underarms. Naruto jerked back in shock, and before he could realize it, bile was flooding his throat. There was no blood. There was no blood, and as he watched, the spurs sticking out from below his wrists were getting longer and changing shape. A body manipulation limit popped into the Jinchuriki's mind. Corpse bone pulse, the power to control his own bones and make them grow in any way he wanted. In less than a minute, the breaks had healed completely, leaving only torn skin to show. The Kagaya now held up two scary looking bone daggers. And this person asked him to copy that. He didn't want to copy it. Just thinking about it stopped the desire that was building in him. He tightened the grips on his own blades, which had become less tight as he watched. The metal and cloth made noise as he squeezed. I'm afraid you don't have a choice in this, Kimimaro said in a calm, emotionless voice. F% and you. Naruto yelled and threw one of those kunai into a group of leaves on the ground. A cluster with an explosive tag at its base, which set off the chain reaction that affected the whole field. Kimimaro didn't move because he didn't have time before the fireball burned up the ground below him. Ino jerked and stopped when the sound of an explosion shook the forest. What did you do? Choji began, forgetting all about the bag of chips because he was so shocked. Ino had called Hyuga Neji the creepiest person in the world, and Team 10 had just finished hiding from him in vain. They had hoped to get out of Hyuga's line of sight, but the Byakugan wasn't blocked by anything solid. The sound didn't reach them until after they were getting ready to run away. Troublesome, Shikamaru said automatically. Sounded like an explosion. There weren't many other sounds that could have been that loud. And sure enough, a cloud of smoke was rising from where the sound had come from. Ino said, I think we should go check it out. Shikamaru snorted and gave the blonde a lazy, annoyed look. The last time we went to check it out, we saw a big part of the forest burst into flames. I don't know about you, but I like staying alive. To emphasize his point, Nara turned away from the smoke plume and tried to leave, but before he could take more than 5 steps, the scruff of his jacket collar pulled him back toward the danger zone. No way. What if we get lucky and get a scroll? The high-pitched Yamanaka asked. The noise was almost loud enough for Nara to cover his ears. Do it, Choji. We're leaving. It wasn't a surprise that the Akamichi agreed. Shikamaru couldn't really blame the boy. Choji had always been too nice for his own good, and Ino's bossiness made things even worse. The only thing the Nara was willing to say was troublesome. To Kimimaro's terrible shock, he learned that he was dying. That meant that he was no longer useful. Orochimaru. Sama's chosen vessel couldn't have any flaws or weaknesses, and his was now destroying itself from the inside out. Not even Kabuto, the master's right hand, could help him. His body was too different, too alien, thanks to his bloodline limit. Soon, he wouldn't even be able to get out of bed. Aside from death, the last Kagaya was most scared of the thought of being helpless and useless to his master. He prayed and hoped desperately for a mission or act he could do to prove his worth again. Then he got a message telling him that Orochimaru Sama needed him. He didn't hesitate, delay, or even think twice before running to Konoha, forgetting about how painful his illness was in his haste to please the traitor Sannin. When he got there, his master quickly told him what he had found, a bloodline limit that could perfectly copy other limits. It didn't lose its power or have a time limit, as if the bee. Kimimaro knew right away, without being told, why he was called. He was to give his Shikatsumiku to the new vessel. Even after he died, he would still be useful to Orochimaru. Sama. That was enough. If Kimimaro had to choose one thing right now, it would be to see these beautiful eyes that Orochimaru Sama had told him about. The master had named them Kyokagen. But this boy, this small thing that was trying to take away the wonderful gift his master had given them both. That kind of arrogance could not be tolerated. The final Kagaya could feel the heat from the explosions hitting him, and pieces of debris and torn clothing were rubbing against his skin. But it didn't matter. Under that skin was a layer of hardened bone that couldn't be hurt by such small injuries. He was still impressed by how strong the boy's defenses were. Without that layer of bony protection, he might not have made it this far. When the smoke cleared, he could see that the blonde child's eyes were wide with shock for a moment. They quickly shut down, though, because they already had a second kunai ready to replace the one that had been thrown. Kimimaro had to give the child credit for that. Not many people could look at him with such force, but that would soon change. There was anger in Naruto's eyes. He had spent a lot of time and energy building those defenses, which even the Kyubi had praised and which he didn't think even Hokage GG could break. All of that work had been for nothing. Naruto could see patches of equally burned skin and white bone just beneath the burned clothing, so at least it hadn't failed completely. Nice touch that he used his bloodline limit to make a hidden layer of armor under his skin. Still, it made him mad. He could see the skin healing right now, with the missing parts getting smaller as he watched. In a whisper, he said, "Kyubi," but his lips moved too little for Kimimaro to hear. That was it, she was behind him in an instant. Naruto knew she was there and didn't even have to turn his head to look. "I know what you want," she said, picturing herself crossing her arms over her big chest. "You already know my answer." Naruto closed his eyes and said, "Please. Is that everything you have to offer?" "If that's the case, I fear for my master," Kimimaro said, looking at Naruto with a critical eye. "I had hoped for something more." "Sorry," Naruto said with a smile that was as dangerous as it could be in front of his opponent. He then looked serious and focused on the vixen behind him. "I'm not good enough with your powers yet," he said in a low voice. "He'd wipe the floor with me." He stood there for a moment before reaching out to tear off the charred remains of Naruto's shirt. The fabric, which was now just blackened ash, fell apart easily. His pants, which were made of a much stronger material, had lasted much longer through the explosions, but even they were torn as bone spurs appeared from the points of his knees and elbows, making Naruto's face turn a little pale with fear. "Hold on. Please help me," he begged, looking more and more desperate as the older boy crept up on him, ready to fight. "No." The vixen's voice was almost irritated. "Your body is too damaged." A small smirk tugged at her lips. "But if you don't think you have enough power, you could always call on more of mine." Then there was no more time to talk because Kimimaro charged. The Kagaya closed the gap between them in almost an instant. Naruto barely had time to move before his opponent was on him. Before Naruto could even feel the first attack, he had already been cut 26 times, from his legs to his face, in ways that made him weak but not fatal. Then Kimimaro kicked him in the gut, which was so hard that it threw the boy into the air. The blonde fell hard and rolled around before he stopped. He coughed up blood as he stumbled to his hands and knees. He slowly got up while glaring angrily at her. As he did so, he almost tripped because his left knee was hurting so badly. When he got to a full stand, he wiped the blood off his lips. "I fear for my master," Kimimaro said over and over again. As he pulled his chakra away from the blades in his hands, they turned into bone dust. "He spoke so highly of you, yet I am not impressed. You have not even shown me this, Kyokagen." Naruto's eyes got bigger. But as he realized Orochimaru was telling everyone his most important secrets, his shock turned into a deep, dark anger, a hideous rage, and a wild snarl came up from the back of his throat. Even as he consciously went back to stance, his black pupils, which were set into red irises, grew longer and became slits. As the chakra filled his wounds, steam rose from them. Now it was Kimimaro's turn to be shocked. Those wounds closed up right in front of his eyes, leaving no scars to show what had happened. The Kaguya's expression changed. It was slightly impressed, but not yet enough to approve. It was hard to hear Naruto's roared curse because he punched the air with so much chakra that it warped, sending a concussive wave hurtling toward the Kagaya. Kimimaro's eyes got a little bigger when he saw the subtle show of raw power, and he crossed both arms to block. It felt like being hit by the angry fist of a war god. Even though he had a block in place, he was still lifted off the ground and slammed into a tree so hard that the wood broke into splinters. When the Kagaya finally got free, he let out a short grunt and a new pair of blades started to grow from the palms of his hands. This one had a lot more fight in him than he had thought. When she looked up, she saw that the blonde was surrounded by boiling, bloody red chakra that looked almost like it was pulling dirt and other things out of the ground. The spiky blonde hair was getting even messier, and the nails and eye teeth were getting longer, like claws and fangs. The birthmarks, which looked like whiskers at first but were getting darker and deeper, making the look even scarier. I think Kimimaro raised his blades to protect himself from seeing what was going on. Things were getting interesting. Ino, this is not a good idea. Shikamaru almost yelled as he felt the heavy chakra in the air. The only good thing about the situation was that it made the bossy blonde let go of his vest. Choji put down his chips and looked around with fear on his face. Because it made him feel sick, he decided to stop eating until further notice. Ino turned her attention away from where she felt the source. Afraid, she asked herself, "What is that?" Shikamaru quickly replied, "Don't know, don't care. Now can we get out of here before it comes to kill us?" Oh, she was scared. But people were interested. She wanted to run away with all her might, but the smell in the air was so bad that it almost broke her nerves. She did wonder, though, what kind of monster could have this much power? Which side was it? Maybe someone would need their help because of it. She ran toward the source even though she knew it wasn't a good idea. As Shikamaru chased Ino, he yelled, "What the, damn it, Ino. This whole situation is just too damn annoying. That paper we signed should not have been signed." It was hard for Choji to swallow the lump in his throat as he ran after his teammates. She laughed like a crazy woman who set cities on fire for her own amusement. She found it so funny that she had to lean on the bars of her prison to keep herself up. The Kyubi didn't care if her pod heard the laughter that went through his mind like it was a sewer. It was too simple. According to her instincts, Naruto used more and more of her chakra. And the day before, all she did was show him how to use her chakra and do one stupid attack. She wasn't even trying to force herself on him, by God. The huge vixen kept smiling even after she calmed down. "That's right, you stupid monkey," she growled. "Let me give you strength. Thirst for my power, and I'll overfill your cup. And then, when you need every drop, I'll claim the reins." She hit herself again in the dark. She needs to do her part now. Kimimaro was the first to charge, but Naruto roared and sent an ungodly amount of chakra into the air, stopping him right away. Naruto reappeared above him with a fist of glowing red chakra pulled back in less than a second after the wind and chakra storm stopped. When the knuckles hit, Kimimaro could feel his jaw crack. He was just as strong as Jirobo. The blow, though, left the blonde open. With the little time he had left, Kimimaro swung his palm sword down and hit Naruto across the shoulder. The demon box landed on all fours while the wound healed. It then rolled out of the way as a sword slashed down. Kimimaro's head was kicked, which broke his jawbone even more. Then there was a shockwave that sent the teen with white hair rolling across the ground. What Kimimaro thought would be a break was thrown out the window when Naruto jumped after her and pushed back with another chakra. Charged punch. Just in time, the Kagaya flipped backwards as Naruto's attack sent pieces flying, and it then charged back. Naruto let out a roar that stopped the attack just as a shockwave tore through the air and ripped the leaves off the trees. As soon as the sound wave stopped, Kimimaro lowered his hands, but he was hit with the hardest punch yet, which broke his jaw. The servant of Orochimaru skipped across the ground until a big rock stopped him in his tracks. Once more, Naruto roared, but this time he was happy. Naruto felt a hand wrap around his chest when he was at the height of his rage. "Calm down, Naruto. Kun," a seductive voice told him out loud. "You don't want to pay the price for my chakra, right?" The Kyubi lowered the amount of chakra she gave Naruto and could feel him calm down. His irises rounded, his hair got neater, and his birthmarks got smaller. His breathing slowed down, but it was still heavy. Naruto tried to say, "Wah," but was confused because he had lost his power. The Kyubi said, leaning even closer to his ear, "You went too far. It isn't necessary to go that far, not for this, ingrate." She gave Naruto a very soft kiss on the cheek. He felt so happy afterward that words couldn't describe it. Part of him wanted more, but he knew that wasn't right. The babe was just playing him again. Putting aside his personal issues, he watched as Kimimaro got up and looked like nothing had happened. Even his broken jaw was fixed. Naruto made a noise. This person was stronger than cockroaches. Kaguya said as the bone swords went back into his body, "My bloodline limit gives me full control over my skeletal structure. Not only that, my bones are harder than steel." Naruto said, "You've got to be kidding me," when he suddenly understood why it was so hard to hurt the limit user. Just under his skin, there was a whole armor of bone that was stronger than steel. And any damage he did get was fixed right away. He might have done better to keep using more of the Kyubi's chakra. "Copying my limit would be good for you," Kimimaro said in a calm voice. No," Naruto replied quickly. "Then I see that I still need to convince you." Kaguya put up both hands, letting Naruto see as sharp bones popped out of his fingers. At least he was nice enough to give Naruto a chance to avoid the blow. He aimed his fingertips at the boy with the mustache because he was happy. Naruto knew where this was going. Naruto flared his chakra out of the blue, which made a cloud of red chakra surround him. From the time the bone bullets got close, he was gone in a blur, and Kimimaro's attack destroyed the area where he had been standing. He came back to life in the sky above the Kaguya, filled with chakra like a lit match. 30 blondes came out of the smoke and dove at Kimimaro, making the ram seal. The auto. Nin turned around and shot a few that were too close. As the others landed, their brothers and sisters were being hit over and over again, but it didn't help. His bone bullets easily went through the orange wave and sometimes hit more than one clone at once. He moved his hands calmly back and forth, attacking from behind, in front, and to the sides at the same time. As the last blonde was killed by a bone bullet to the head, there was complete silence. Kimimaro looked around for his target while keeping his hands up in case of an attack from behind. He spun around and made a small frown when he saw a flash of orange go into the trees. He pulled the bones in his fingers back because he knew it was pointless at this point. Because Uzumaki wasn't the first one, he knew what the blonde was up to. The best way to protect himself from his Teshi Senden was to cover up. Kimimaro coughed hard into his hand just as he was about to chase after her. No one missed the coppery taste in his mouth. When he took his hand off of it, he saw some red drops in it. He made a face with a frown. He walked calmly into the thicket of trees even though the disease was killing him. Anko let out a sigh as she stood outside of Iruka's apartment. She put out her hand to knock on his door, but he pulled it back. She tried to knock again with a frown but was pulled back again. "Oh no, I'm being so shy." Anko yelled in her head, removing her hair and clenching her teeth. "Usually, I'd bang on the door and tell him to let me in, or something like that. No. I'm being stupidly shy like a teenager instead. If someone from the T&I department saw me like this, they would think badly of me." She took a few deep breaths to calm down, but it was hard because she had butterflies in her stomach. When the hell did she ever feel butterflies in her stomach? Oh no. Everything about this was a pain in the ass. When did she start to feel so? Lovesick? Anko came under the guise of asking Iruka about his skills in order to take her mind off of what was going on around her. He also thought she might say something about a date at some point. But she got more scared as she stood near the door for longer. "Oh, I give." She began, but Iruka opened the door while he rubbed his eyes to wake up. He wore pants and a white shirt and yawned as he asked, "What's up?" "Shit." Anko screamed in her head. She asked quickly, "How did you know I was here?" "Bioelectricity," he said jokingly. "Oh, yeah," Anko said with a nervous laugh. She should have known better, right? "I hate how you feel." "Did I, wake you up?" He shook his head. "Nah, I just barely got up. I feel much better, though. Man, I hate chakra exhaustion. Every time I use that technique I always end up being out of it for a couple days." The snake mistress knew what kind of jutsu he was talking about. That crazy cannon for charged particles that he used. If only it had been able to fry her old teacher. Anko said in a low voice, "I know how it feels." She took a deep breath and went on. "Hey, I know you're probably hungry. With how much chakra you used up, I imagine you'll probably eat more than Naruto. Iruka's stomach went off as if she agreed, which made the Chunin laugh nervously. Yeah, food sounds really nice. How about Ichiraku's on me? Anko asked, since she was also very hungry. I would like that. Anko's stomach butterflies came back with a vengeance, but she quickly squished them. This wasn't even a date. The two of them walked to Ichiraku's after Iruka changed. It was too bad that the walk was uncomfortable and quiet. They couldn't forget what had happened in the last few days. It was a feeling that wouldn't go away. It was a failure that they would always remember. Their job was easy. They had to keep someone important to them safe. They did a terrible job. They still didn't know what to do or where to go next. When the ramen stand came into view, it was a relief and a short break from their worries. Ichiraku asked his two regulars, "Hey, what can I get you too?" Iruka happy told him, "I'm going to need more than usual," and she sat down at the counter. "I'm suffering from chakra exhaustion and I've got quite the appetite." Ichiraku gave a small laugh. "Of course, I've got just the thing for that. How about you, Anko?" Her answer was usual, and she sat down next to Iruka. He told them with a smile, "Okay, I'll get right on it." It was awkward for them to be quiet. Anko finally got tired of it. "So, about that whole blue, lightning, thing. What was that?" Iruka answered with a smile, glad for the break. "That's kind of unusual in my clan. In the Amino clan, only the strongest people with the most electrical power can use blue lightning." Anko was still interested, so he went on. "The difference is simply in the charge. You see, regular purple lightning carries a negative charge, but blue lightning carries a positive charge which helps to increase its power and density." "Wow, it sounds so complicated," Anko said, her brain exploding from the little he had told her. It made Iruka laugh only. "Ah, but I just covered the very basics. We haven't even gotten into electromagnetism." "Screw that," Anko shot back, which made Iruka laugh even more. "Here you go," Ichiraku said, putting down Iruka's very large order of ramen and Anko's usual amount of dango. "Enjoy." In a hurry, Iruka dug in. When the dumpling got close to Anko's mouth, she stopped. She stopped being so hungry all of a sudden. Iruka looked at her with worry as she put her sweet back on the plate with a deep sigh. As she thought about what had happened over the last few days, her face became sad. She couldn't get to sleep. When she closed her eyes, the snake-like face of her betraying sensei would stare back at her. She woke up in a cold sweat from nightmares about the horrible experiments he would do on Naruto and the damage he would do to Konoha. In her mind, she could feel his cold laughter running through her body, like a frozen hand tracing her back. She was still too weak to carry out her personal vendetta. When Iruka put a soft hand on her shoulder, she snapped out of her thoughts. Anko slowly walked up to him and saw that the mask he was wearing had a serious look on it, which wasn't like him at all. So as not to draw attention to herself, Iruka told her quietly, "We'll look out for him. Even if we have to fight the world, we'll protect him." Anko looked at her food with blurry eyes, but it didn't taste good anymore. She had tears on the edges of her eyes, which was something she never thought she'd feel again. Oh my, when did she last cry? She promised herself she wouldn't cry after he left, right? She whispered, "I'm too weak." Those words were the bitterest thing she had ever said. Even when he came back, I was so useless. I'm not strong enough. Iruka's hold on her shoulder got stronger. "Don't say that. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You've been through things that would have broken other people. You survived. But it's not enough," she said in a low voice. Just when I finally have something important to protect, he comes and ruins everything. And it's all because I'm not strong enough." At some point, Iruka realized that Anko was more like a person than she had been making everyone think. She knew what it was like to be alone and hid behind a mask, just like Naruto. That's why they hit it off right away. They understood each other. She finally got accepted, but now it was under attack, and she wanted power more than ever to protect everything important to her. Anko looked at him with a hard look on her face. A person with eyes that looked like mirrors and a permanent grin had a look he knew. He had only seen it on one face. Anko was getting more like Naruto. "Train me," she said in a calm voice. Iruka looked at her as if she was trying to find any doubt in Anko's mind. He slowly raised his lips in a calm smile. "I thought I was going to have to ask," he joked inside. Naruto leaned against a tree with his back against it. The shadows and the dark clothes he was wearing helped his cause. He reminded himself to thank Iruka and Anko for changing his clothes. His blood red, slit eyes were the only thing that reminded us of him. Kimimaro's feet crunching on dead leaves could be heard by his sensitive ears. Naruto was able to find out where his attacker was because he has a sensitive nose. About 20 feet away, Kimimaro spoke into the air, "I'm giving you a gift." She knew that Naruto was paying close attention. "Why do you not wish to accept it?" He was interested. If Kimimaro had given his limit to someone else, they would not have thought twice about it. This boy, however, had an ultimate power and was using it to not copy his limit. He was interested in this in some way. No matter what a shinobi did, Naruto stood against it. The Kagaya put his shoulder out like a sword and caught the blade as it fell. He wasn't trying to hurt Naruto, but he had to protect himself because this guy wasn't predictable. Naruto closed his eyes and became more like the shadows. "Personal reasons," Naruto said, walking across the forest floor without making a sound. It was a bad idea to stand still around this crazy white-haired person. Naruto didn't know how good Kimimaro was at seeing chakra, but he wasn't going to find out. It was better for him to be farther away from the person who could move bones. "Make me laugh," Kimimaro said, following Naruto's voice. Naruto said, "I'd rather not," but he realized his mistake too late. "There you go." He jumped at a tree a few meters away and cut the trunk of the tree with his sword. Naruto stumbled out from under the cover, cutting his arm. "Damn it." Naruto muttered as he swung a charged hand around to block Kimimaro. But the bone manipulator put down his sword and swung his hand away so quickly that it sent a shockwave flying to the right. He then hit Naruto several times with a sword while holding a quickly grown bone. The blows hurt Naruto's chest in a few shallow ways. The blonde fell backwards because he wasn't ready for the hard kick that sent him flying into another tree headfirst. Naruto's eyes swam as he slowly stood up, using one hand to hold on to the tree. His shoulder hurt like hell. When he looked at it, he saw a bone sticking out of the wound. The bone held him to the tree no matter what he did. The Jinchuriki felt a sword press against his throat as his world stopped spinning. "I told him, copy my Shikatsumiku, or I'll leave you alone. If you don't, I'll force you to." Naruto didn't answer. Kyubi, on the other hand, felt like he was screaming inside. "Make more use of my chakra." She pushed. "You can kill this bug with it. Quickly, before he does more harm." The Kyubi would have kept giving him chakra if she had known this is how the battle would have ended. She might have even made him a chakra cloak. Naruto tried to answer in his head, but the words wouldn't come out. When he used her power, he lost his humanity. Haku might be able to keep him from giving in to her will completely, but the fight could hurt his body even more. This time, though, it would come from the Kyubi's chakra. But then he thought about his teammates and how they were feeling at the time. They both needed him. He was not going to let Orochimaru have his way. Naruto stopped thinking about what he was going to say when Kimimaro stood up straight, his face showing surprise. "Naruto!" yelled a surprised female voice, and the blonde knew who it was. When he looked up, the new trio of Ino, Shikamaru, and Cho were standing far away. Shikamaru was in the same pose as Kimimaro, Ino was getting ready to use a technique, and Choji was getting ready to attack his friend. "What the hell are you guys doing here?" Naruto asked in a very sincere way. "What does it look like?" When Ino answered, she sounded angry. "We're here to save your ass." "Ino!" Shikamaru yelled, and you could see his teeth clenched and his face twisted in concentration. "I can't hold him." The platinum blonde looked and saw that the lone ninja was slowly walking toward them with his hand raised and what looked like nails sticking out of his tips. The Naruto screamed, "Run!" Team 10 spread out as Kimimaro threw bone needles out of his hand, freeing himself from Nara's grip. As he watched Team 10 move, the Auto Nin raised his other hand and fired from both of them. Ino barely made it out of range of the shots, and Choji hid behind a rock. Shikamaru, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. He broke several bones in his ankle and tripped as he got close to a tree. "Damn it!" Nara yelled as he quickly turned to face his stronger opponent. He had Kimimaro's full attention now, and both hands were poised so that bone spikes stuck out of their tips. "Shika!" While their teammate looked at death's door, Ino and Choji both yelled at the same time. Naruto ran up behind the Kaguya, his wounds healed and his right hand on fire with red chakra, cutting off the moment. "Hey, guys!" Naruto yelled in his head as he threw his fist forward. He used all of his chakra to power the attack. When Kimimaro turned to face the attack, a foul chakra flared to life and he instinctively partially broke the seal. As the attack hit him, his right arm changed. It got claws and turned a sickly gray color. When the two attacks hit each other, the sheer amount of chakra in them made a hole in the ground around them. Team 10 was amazed by how much power was being shown and held their breath as they waited for the cloud of debris to clear away. Naruto was the first person to show up. He stumbled out of the cloud with blood running from his knuckles and some of his fingers being badly damaged. Next up was Kimimaro, who clenched his weak arm. When Kimimaro got far enough away from his opponents, he used his Shikatsumiku to protect his shoulder. After the sickening snap, the bone user rolled it for fun. On the inside, the Kaguya felt good about Naruto. Even when he was taking it easy, not many people could beat him. The Sound 4, on the other hand, could only dream of being able to break their jaw and dislocate their arm. Not only that, but he had to change his arm because he was so scared for a moment. Not too bad. It's really not bad. Good gods, Shikamaru said in a low voice. That guy is a monster. It's because of his bloodline limit, Naruto told them, already able to feel his hurt knuckles snap back into place. He has control over his bones, which are as strong as steel. I've been fighting this guy for 20 minutes, and he can heal any damage he takes. As Shikamaru thought about the information Naruto gave him, he was mentally going over his plans like Akamichi does when he has bad gas. This guy was better than them in every way. They couldn't run because he was so fast and strong, and his attacks were too strong for them to block. The Ino, Shika, and Cho trio's attacks would backfire. They don't have a good chance of making it out alive. Shika, Ino spoke up, sounding very tense. When he looked up, Kimimaro was slowly walking toward them. His coat was off, and his joints were slowly becoming bones. Shikamaru finally said, "We're screwed." Kimimaro was sure that this had to end soon. Even before he used the Kai no Juin for a short time, his body was quickly breaking down. It was getting old, and Naruto had to capture the younger boy for his master if he wasn't going to accept his limit. Everyone stopped when a new chakra filled the air, carrying hate and desire for blood. Team 10 was filled with fear, and all three of its members naturally wanted to run away. Kimimaro, on the other hand, knew right away what it was and raised an eyebrow. Now what? Naruto asked himself in a biting way, wondering which god's coffee he had somehow pissed in. When everyone looked to the source, they saw Sasuke slowly rising. A flame. Like tattoo crawled around his body as foul chakra swirled around him. The more the chakra spread, the stronger it became. When the Uchiha looked up, the genin was fighting someone he didn't know. His Sharingan blurred as he took in the scene. But Naruto, with his beautiful eyes, was the only person who caught his attention. Sasuke gave a mean smile. Kakashi sighed as he walked with his hands in his pockets toward the Hokage tower. What is it now? If it wasn't one thing, it was something else. It looked like there were piles of trash after piles of trash, each one bigger than the last. Based on his past experiences, he was about to face the biggest problem yet. Not that Orochimaru hunting his pupil wasn't big enough without it. But to be honest, it was more of an after effect. In other words, Naruto was the one swimming in the cesspool, and Kakashi was just in the way of the splashing. Why should it surprise him that Naruto was at odds with everyone? Kakashi really couldn't feel it. He almost thought it would happen. Naruto was so flamboyant that he could have fought a garden slug. This was especially true when he was in the academy. But who could have thought that everything would turn out that way? Naruto had a lot of problems with the Kyokagen. The Kyokagen was both an enemy's worst nightmare and an ally's holy place in a world where Kekkei Genkai were highly valued. In fact, some clans used seals to keep their secrets from getting into the wrong hands. Kakashi thought that if he had a Kekkei Genkai that copied other ones, people would also be after him. Benton. Sama either hated the blonde so much that she decided to curse the boy with enough bad luck to make Tsunade. Sama cringed, or she loved Naruto so much that she skipped the lucky kiss and went straight to mounting him. Kakashi put down his thoughts and let out another sigh as he looked up at the tower. He was coming here way too often these days. He liked Tenzo, Iruka, and Anko, but everyone had their limits, especially Anko. Recently, visits here have brought too much sad news. When we talk about his secret allies, where were they during this mess? As Kakashi walked into the building, he asked, why can't he just call Iruka instead? Yes, it would be nice to take a break from bad news. In fact, a vacation sounded great in general. As soon as he opened the doors, his eyes went to a pair of familiar breasts that were a D cup size. Pervert, Jizenka curtly greeted as she stood up, recognizing the silver hair right away as something that defied gravity. The important word here is thought. Kakashi thought that Jizenka was funny, so he greeted her with a smile and said, "Booby." Chan. Kaiko kicked Kakashi in the balls. There was a big change in Kakashi's voice. Pain. He screamed as he fell to the ground and grabbed his broken belongings. Jizenka put her finger on her face and said, "My eyes are here." "Not here," she said, pointing to her big chest. The Sandame said, "I am guessing that you two have met." "You could say that," Jizenka said in a vague way as she sat down. Sarutobi told Kakashi, "Pick yourself up off the floor." He wanted to end the meeting quickly, even though it had been both funny and scary. "We've got things to cover." Kakashi's new falsetto voice cried out, "It hurts. Give me a minute please." They were patient as Kakashi slowly stood up. It hurt the copy cat ninja as he sat in the empty chair. Sarutobi let out a sigh because he could already see the headache coming. "Kakashi, I'm giving you a mission." The copycat agreed with a nod, but he didn't say anything because he was afraid of making himself look bad by speaking with an unusually high voice. After going on, the Hokage waved an old hand at Jizenka. "This young lady is the famed Jizenka. I'm sure you're familiar with the name." Kakashi's one eye almost didn't stay in its place. He slowly and painfully turned around to look into Jizenka's eyes and smile. He must know the name, right? During the Third Great Shinobi War, Jizenka was one of Iwagakura's rising stars and had a well-known reputation. As the current holder of the famous Mantis contract of Iwa, there were rumors that she could have been as strong as the Sannin if she had had enough time. However, spy reports say that Jizenka shocked Iwa and other nearby shinobi villages when she told them she was retiring early. She disappeared after that. At the same time, Kakashi's eyes seemed to be telling the truth, Jizenka seemed to still be working. Work for a different country. Kakashi turned his full attention back to his commander in chief right away and kept talking. "We have a situation on our hands. Jizenka's student was kidnapped last night by Orochimaru at approximately 0232, 2 days ago. Jizenka San's student attempted to fight back, but Orochimaru simply overpowered her. Jizenka didn't get a look from the scarecrow. She was sad, and her back was hunched in hidden sadness. It was clear that she cared deeply about her student." Kakashi pushed his thoughts aside and said, "This is really bad because Komoruta Shizuka is the only living person who knows the Genzome, which is one of the 3 great Dojutsu." Hitaki just couldn't help himself. "Oh, Sanuva. Yes, that is why you're here. We need to rescue Komoruta San. A powerful Kekkei Genkai has fallen into enemy hands and we need to recover it. As both a capable tracker and an individual knowledgeable of transcendent types, you're one of the very few capable of fulfilling this mission's perimeters as low-key as possible. Thus, this mission is S. ranked. Jizenka San will fill you in on the Genzome's capabilities." Kakashi only needed a second to figure out that Sarutobi had broken a rule about a certain ninja while with certain people. Jizenka spoke up as if she knew what he was thinking. "Hitaki San, let it be known that I'm aware of the Kyokagen's presence. I realize the dangers of revealing such a Kekkei Genkai and its abilities, and, as such, I have promised to keep quiet about it in return for aid in retrieving my student." Any academy student with half a brain could see that Jizenka forced Konoha to work with her. The Sandame asked nicely, "Jizenka San, would it be okay if I talked to Kakashi alone?" "Of course not," the redhead said quickly. As soon as the door shut, Sarutobi quickly flashed through a set of hand seals, which turned on the noise canceling seals that were set up all over the room. When he was done, the old cage sat back down with a frown on his face. It was a sign of Sarutobi's years of political maneuvering that he was able to keep his cool as he said, "I'm sure you caught what she was insinuating." Oh, I did, Kakashi said, and I'm not happy about it. His one eye got red with anger. Neither am I, but this works two ways. The copycat's eye looked calm. How so? Like we've been keeping the Kyokagen secret, Onjuzenka has kept the Genzome under wraps for fear of the major powers turning her student into a weapon of war. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't have come to us unless she had something to keep us in check. And we have no choice but to go along with it so that an international incident doesn't turn into war, Kakashi said. He had a small amount of respect for Juzenka. Smart girl. My thoughts as well. I'm assuming we play along? I'm afraid so, and with it dealing with Orochimaru it is imperative that we do take action. There's no telling how my former student will utilize the Genzome. Kakashi asked, maybe to bring out the Kyokagen? That's a possibility I won't rule out, Sarutobi said with a long sigh. Either way, work alongside Juzenka. In my right mind, I couldn't let Komoruda-san suffer under my former student. I get it, sir, the Jonin said in a somber voice. Naruto, Kimimaro, and Sasuke, who had a lot of tattoos, were in a fight while Team 10 watched with tense eyes. Sasuke was surrounded by foul chakra that was so dirty that it almost suffocated the genin. Kimimaro just raised an eyebrow and watched, while Naruto kept a wary eye on his teammate, who was being called wildcard. At the moment, Naruto hated Benton-sama. His whole week has been a mess so far. He could write down all of his problems, but that would take too long. Iruka would stop reading it at page 35 because it was too long. But if he looked back at the last few months of his life and all of his problems, they would all come down to his gift. He used this word very, very loosely, from Kyokagen, the lucky bitch goddess. The blonde thought it might have also been why Sasuke tackled him. Sasuke's rush sent both boys flying backwards down the side of a hill, where they could no longer be seen. Team 10 and Kimimaro watched. Kimimaro swore as he took off after them. The bone manipulator didn't want to think about how angry Orochimaru-sama would be if something happened to his future container. Team 10 looked at each other, not sure what to do next, after being left behind. Naruto and Sasuke fell from the hill. The blonde could feel his body hitting every rock, stick, and tree trunk along the way. Every time his butt got hurt, he cursed Benton-sama. When both boys finally reached the bottom, they rushed to stand up and try to get the drop on the other. They were both hurt. Instead of Naruto, Sasuke jumped first, knocking him to the ground and quickly grabbing the collar of the Jinchuriki's black jacket. Naruto could finally see his crazy teammate clearly. From the spot where the snake freak bit him, a flame-like tattoo went all the way across his body. He thought it was where that bad chakra came from. Show it to me. Sasuke yelled, his face twisted in a crazy smile. He asked back, show what? As he tried to get his teammate off. Your Kekkei Genkei. You hide those silver eyes from everyone. Sasuke almost screamed as he slammed Naruto to the ground. Naruto used demonic chakra to push the Uchiha so hard that it threw his teammate into the air. The blonde reacted right away and hit Sasuke with a bicycle kick that sent him skidding across the ground. Sasuke. Teme, you better get your behind out of the way before I do it for you. Naruto yelled as Sasuke jumped up. The crazy teen just smiled and then disappeared into thin air. In the middle of groaning, ma. Uzumaki was hit in the cheek with a fist, sending blonde spinning into the ground. Jumping to his feet, the Jinchuriki quickly recovered. He dove under Sasuke's next roundhouse kick and sidestepped an axe kick that cut the ground. With a roar, Naruto grabbed Uchiha by the wrist and threw Sasuke over his shoulder and into the tree canopy above, where he hit a branch hard enough to be heard. Naruto said, I really need to watch my power. As Sasuke hit the ground with a dust cloud, Uzumaki took a stance. He then relaxed as the flame-like marks went away, carrying the bad chakra with them. Sasuke got to his feet slowly, looking lost and probably with a concussion. What? Sasuke asked in a dazed voice before swaying one last time and hitting the ground hard on his face. Naruto let out a happy sigh. The last attack must have knocked the jerk's head off his behind. That's fine. He only had to deal with the following now. Uzumaki jerked to the side as a bone blade almost went through his shoulder. He also got cut on the arm, but it was already healing. Kimimaro's eyes got really big when Naruto stuck out an arm in the middle of a spin and hit Kimimaro in the jaw. The bone user tripped and fell, which gave Naruto time to charge up a fistful of red and aim it at the Kaguya's eye. The Kaguya was pushed back, and Naruto yelled, "No." My answer is still no. Hell to the no. Now go the hell away. Kimimaro slowly got up, and he looked sad. I see, then there is no other choice. There wasn't much time left. His illness was getting worse quickly because he was working so hard, and the mission's error margin was growing quickly with every second that was wasted. Naruto asked with wide eyes and a shaky stance, "Huh? What?" Naruto's eyes got bigger as the lines that started at the base of Kimimaro's throat spread out over his whole body. The lines went all the way around Kaguya's body, darkening and glowing until no skin was left bare. His back broke into 6 pieces that looked like the spines of long gone dinosaurs. A new part of his body stuck out from his back and was covered with smaller spikes that went up his spine. When it was over, Kimimaro stood like a dinosaur, with his big tail swinging behind him in a lazy way. The power was the same as Sasuke's, but it was much better. It dawned on Naruto that this man, this monster, was the deadliest challenge he had ever faced. Naruto didn't even notice the way it moved. Kimimaro was just staring at him lazily 1 second, and Naruto was slammed through a tree and hit hard on a rock the next blink of an eye. After a moan, Naruto fell forward and hit his face. It was painful. In fact, it hurt a lot. The force behind Kimimaro's single hit was stronger than even Zabuza's Zanbato, and the speed was much faster than Haku's. Now, Kimimaro Kaguya was a whole different kind of enemy. Before Naruto could even think about attacking back, something hard and spiked wrapped around his wrist. Naruto was thrown into the air and hit the ground with so much force that it made a crater. The pain hadn't even hit him yet. In less than a second, the sharp object let go and threw him high into the air. It then grabbed his ankle and pulled him back to the ground with enough force to break several vertebrae. In order to keep from screaming in pain, Naruto had to bite his cheek. In less than 5 seconds, he got 3 broken ribs, one of which may have punctured a lung based on the blood he was coughing up, several cracked or broken vertebrae, and a bunch of nasty cuts. The blonde turned his head just enough to see a whip like weapon spin through the air before turning back into a sword with sharpened vertebrae stacked on top of each other. It was like an abyss between him and Kaguya. Naruto had no chance of being able to beat that. In that case, he wouldn't be able to do it. The Kyokagen must be there. Kimimaro's hand blurred, and the whip extended. The tip dug into the ground, hitting Naruto in the air and cutting him several times in the chest. The whip shot past Naruto and then snapped back, grabbing Naruto's arm and pulling him back toward the person who owned the weapon. Kimimaro raised his fist and hit Naruto in the stomach, freeing him from the whip but cutting his arm. Naruto skipped across the ground until he finally slid off the edge and stopped. Naruto rolled over on his back after what seemed like an eternity as Kimimaro's slow steps echoed toward him. He told Naruto, "Copy my Kekkei Genkai." He was kneeling above Naruto. Even though it hurt and blood was running into his eyes, Konoha's most unpredictable ninja smiled in a sneaky way. "Fuck you," Naruto wheezed in pain. His only move was to stare at him. The only sign of his anger was how tight his grip on his bone whip was getting. In a blur of speed, the Kaguya dug his nails into the ground and murmured something that Naruto couldn't make out over the world that was slowly dying down. As bones flew out of the ground, he felt pain in his thighs, shoulders, and stomach. Naruto let out a painful scream. "This is the space between us," Kimimaro said calmly, even though his patience was quickly running out. "Orochimaru Sama could close this gap and more. But you." The voice lost its grip. "I crushed your body, I smashed your bones, and yet you continue to defy Orochimaru." "Sama's wish." "Why?" "Yes," said a familiar, sultry voice. "Why, Naruto? Kun?" It all got frozen. Even the falling leaves didn't move. The pain went away for a short time. Naruto blinked, and a shadow fell over his eyes. The Kyubi was on its knees and looking down at him with its ruby eyes. She told him, "You're such a weirdo. Everyone offers you power, the Kyokagen offers you power, I offer you power. Yet, each is subsequently turned down. Why?" Naruto didn't know how he had the strength to say, "Why does it matter?" The Kyubi held Naruto's temples gently, her pale hands stained with blood. "It is everything. Shinobi are weapons. Weapons need power, need to be sharpened, otherwise they are broken. Jinchuriki are weapons of the most powerful sort. Do you not understand this? I'm nobody's tool, Uzumaki arrogantly replied. I refuse to be anybody's tool. The Kyubi looked down at him as if to see how deep his soul was. She tried to make him feel better by tracing his brow with one thumb. We're dying, she finally said, but her voice didn't show that she was scared. I don't want to die. It was all over for Uzumaki. The Kyubi and he both knew it. The vixen tried to press her chakra onto him even though he was very close to dying. But what else did he have in the end? His Shikyotsumatsu could be copied by him, but Orochimaru would win. Naruto hated the snake. Bastard so much right now that he was willing to die rather than obey him. I know, was all Naruto could say. I don't want to either. So, give me your chakra. If the Kyokagen's released state was enough to hit Orochimaru several times, then the Kyubi's chakra might be just what he needs to fight Kimimaro. What was that insult to people again? Yes, indeed. It's a tie. As the Kyubi said, very well, a mean grin crossed its pretty face. You'll see just how much the Kyokagen power pales to mine. Kakashi put his hands behind his back and tried not to reach for his book. He was afraid that Jizenka would hit him again if she saw it. Your student has a transcendent type Kekkei Genkai as well? In order to find Orochimaru or the traitor in Konoha's ranks, they were hopping their way to training area 44, which was the last place Shizuka was seen. There was a mole, though, and not even the mantis Jizenka used to tag her niece could help her find the traitor. But Kakashi hoped to make small talk to break the ice until they got there. It hasn't worked very well so far. She stopped on a branch of a tree. A few meters away, they could see the Forest of Death's fence around the edges. Yes, was her short answer. Kakashi was really happy on the inside. She finally spoke up. You never did tell me what this Genzome could do. It was hard for the Scarecrow to figure out why the Mantis Sage was having so many problems. Yes, her student was in danger, but she had to give this some thought. For years, Orochimaru stayed away from Konoha. There were good reasons to think that catching the jerk had about as much of a chance as a snowball in hell. That woman needed to take a break, or she would burn out. Normal people wouldn't have noticed that she was clearly stressed out, but it was clear to everyone else.
Shizuka could only help Orochimaru while he was still alive.
Transcendent limits didn't work well for anyone else unless they knew a lot about how it worked. Knowing that, the former Iwa Jonin should be able to rest a little. Then why didn't she? She let out a sigh. Well, if I remember the legend right, the Genzome was originally first used by the Sage of the Water Moon, the creator of Genjutsu. In the same legend, it states that the sage founded the countries of Tsuchi and Kaminari. Kakashi asked, so I can assume that the Genzome's skills are based on Genjutsu? Indeed, Jizenka said next. The Genzome allows Shizuka to create hybrid illusions, only limited by her imagination. They're so strong that she can fool the body into thinking the event is really happening, but it can also go so far as to fool other dojutsu. Her eyes are the conduit to her abilities. Although she can create illusions using her own chakra, her most powerful abilities are manifested when she gains control of her opponent's nervous system by contacting senses in some way. That Kekkei Genkai is scary, Kakashi said in a low voice. As Komoruda ages, she will become a very dangerous opponent. Jizenka smiled without meaning to. She's absolutely brilliant, but so stupid at the same time. She could outsmart Inara, but can't put aside her pride. The Hitaki said out loud, I can see that, and put his hands in his pockets. My students have their own quirks and habits that drive me up the wall. Naruto can be a fast learner, but lacks common sense. Sasuke is considered a prodigy, but is incredibly arrogant. Sakura has the most brilliant mind among her team, but is often naive. Kakashi gave a shrug. They're fools, but they're my fools. There was a strange silence between the two. Jizenka broke it in the end. But I imagine they're just students to you. Hitaki thought, now I'm getting somewhere. He could read between the lines. There was more than just a teacher. Student bond. They were linked in some way. Shizuka might have been related to Jizenka directly if the way she attached herself to her was any indication. It took me a moment to figure out that she was eagerly anticipating what he would say. Kakashi sighed when he realized this. Well, I have to disagree with that assessment. They're the closest thing I've had to a family in a long time. Someone said, then you can imagine how I feel, and Jizenka's voice was sharp. Suddenly, there was a lot of hate and anger in the area. Kakashi and Jizenka's eyes got really big when they saw it. Jizenka said in a whisper that chakra. Is that a Jinchuriki? Kakashi could only think of one word to describe how he felt: shit. As Shikamaru leaned against a tree for support, he said, You've got to be kidding me. Again? The anger and desire to kill were too much for him to handle. Every nerve in his brain that dealt with strategy told him to run away in the opposite direction. That feeling again. Ino muttered, her eyes wide and her arm tense with fear. It was much stronger than the last time and wasn't going away as quickly as it showed up. To the side, Choji lost his breakfast, lunch, and all of his snacks in between. We need to help Naruto, Ino said in a low voice as he took a shaky step forward. It's got to be that bone guy. She could still remember how Sasuke's chakra felt. This is something that the freaky bone guy might have used. This may have had something to do with it. But the way it felt was very different from Sasuke's tainted chakra. Shika tried to stop them by asking, what do you expect us to do? His voice was calm even though he was scared. Let's face it, we're not the strongest team out there. If we face whatever this is, we'll die a troublesome death, I'm sure. When Ino frowned, he didn't answer or move on. Fine, but I'm going to watch and make sure everything is okay. Damn it. Ino. Shikamaru was so mad that he could only slap his face. Kimimaro was hit in the jaw from below, which made him backflip without being able to stop himself. The ninja with white hair jumped back up, but he tripped because his mind was being hit by a killer intent attack filled with rage and bloodlust. Kagaya looked straight to the source. He got chills all the way down his spine when he saw what he saw. Naruto was slowly being lifted off the ground by crimson, bubbling chakra that felt almost acidic. Kimimaro asked the air, what is this power? Hoping that some godforsaken being would answer him. Smoke rose from his wounds as they healed completely, leaving no scars at all. The bone swords that had stabbed the boy fell off, leaving only smooth skin. The boy, who looked like he had gone wild, screamed in pain and held his chest as the chakra wrapped around his head. Naruto finally fell to his hands as the chakra cloak lit up and became stable. The balance of power changed, but Kimimaro couldn't tell which side it tipped toward. Kagaya moved quickly. He raised his hands and fired a few bone bullets to test the cloak. He was shocked when the attacks missed the cloak and only made it ripple. There was no movement from Naruto. Just as Kimimaro was changing his strategy, Naruto shot forward and slammed his clawed hand into the ground. The teen with white hair barely turned around, but the big chakra hand that came next knocked him out. A skid helped the Kagaya land on his feet, and then an enlarged chakra hand shot out from the cloak. Kimimaro used his bone whip to grab a tree at the far end of the clearing. He then moved out of the way just as the hand hit the ground with a huge impact. But then it went after a Ryu and chased him while a second hand joined the chase. To get to their target, they smashed through rocks, trees, and other things. Kimimaro turned to the hands to get ready for impact when he landed, but the chakra disappeared as he got close. He dropped his guard because he was scared, but Naruto's chakra tail grabbed a tree trunk and plowed it through the ground. Before the momentum ended, Naruto popped up above Kimimaro with a clawed hand reaching for his face. Kimimaro instinctively grabbed the limb, which quickly grew longer and sharper phalanges that cut through the chakra cloak. It didn't do much damage, but Naruto was able to jump into a tree and get away. Kimimaro wiped the blood off his mouth and looked at the blonde who was hanging from a branch by his chakra tail. Incredible, I've never encountered anything like this. The cloak couldn't keep people out. Instead, it worked like a cushion against chakras that were at odds with each other. That alone made most elemental attacks almost useless, since they always had a lot of chakra that wasn't tightly organized. But just like another diamond can cut through a diamond, any attack with the same amount of chakra should be able to hit through the red energy and hurt someone. Here he comes. Kimimaro put down his analysis as Naruto roared and jumped off the tree, leaving marks on the ground where his chakra had been pushed out. The Jinchuriki grabbed a tree trunk with a chakra arm and spun to hit his target. Kagaya dove to the side. As quickly as possible, Kimimaro hardened a layer of armor under his skin. It cracked from Naruto's bullet. Like charged, but it stopped most of the attack. Uzumaki had to back off as Kimimaro clenched his teeth in pain and shot spikes out of all over his body. He had to think about it. He had never fought anything like this cloak of chakra before, and he needed a way to beat it. The bone manipulator got away in an instant as Naruto plowed the ground with another extension of his cloak. Kagaya decided to use his faster speed to buy time. He sped off, but two chakra hands were weaving through trees to pull him back to the angry demon. Container. The scariest thing about the cloak was that it could be used as a weapon. The acidic chakra was anamorphous, meaning it could stretch and reach over long distances to launch powerful attacks. And sometimes Kimimaro was sure that the cloak was attacking as if it had a mind, making the enemy unpredictable. But in theory, the chakra should only be able to stretch so far before it can't hold itself up anymore, which would make it fall apart. To put it simply, the chakra arms got weaker as the range increased. With that last thought in mind, Kimimaro pushed chakra into his legs and jumped out into the open air, above the trees. As he had planned, the cloak hands went after them. They tried to grab him in the air, but Kagaya moved past them. Naruto was already in the air to meet him before he could be happy about what he had seen. A chakra fist shot out in a big arc and slammed into the forest below, killing a ninja that looked like a dinosaur. Kimimaro knew that falling that far would hurt, so he stretched out several bones and bit into the bark of the trees to slow his fall. Just as he stopped, Naruto dove out from above the trees in a red blur, hitting Kagaya hard and sending him flying through the air like a cloud of paper. Kimimaro moaned as he slowly stood up, but then he bent down. He was finally giving up because of the pain of his illness and Naruto's brutal attacks. He no longer had his bone whip and was taking damage that, even with his bone armor, he thought he would never see. The Kagaya spat blood, but it was blood from the scary boy, not his illness. This really was a scary opponent. The cloak's more unusual abilities were impressive, but so were the ways it made Naruto stronger. They might have gone far beyond the cursed seal. But Naruto's ability to heal quickly, faster than the cursed seals could ever do, was truly amazing. But the fight wasn't over. Kimimaro got ready for a counterattack by using what he had learned from watching. Tessenka no Mai. Hana, Kimimaro said in a low voice as he watched as his arm bones spiraled out into a spear. Like weapon. Just as the bones were finished forming, Naruto charged from the side with a roar, causing air to escape from the chakra and volume that were being held. That brave soldier who served Orochimaru turned to face the attack, spear ready to jab forward. His body froze up all of a sudden. Not right now. Kimimaro felt like he was going to pass out. He got sick at the worst possible time. When Naruto's shoulder hit the auto. Nin, it was strong enough to break down a reinforced concrete wall. The Kagaya was in so much pain that he hit every tree and rock in his path. He finally lost his speed, leaving him in a small trench that his body had dug out. Before Kimimaro could even take a step, Naruto's chakra touched his ankle and made it feel acidic. As soon as he felt the pain, the ghostly limb grabbed him and threw him into the air. It then grabbed him again and threw him back to the ground with such force that Kagaya thought something broke. It wasn't enough for Naruto, though. The wild boy jumped on Kimimaro and started hitting the older teen very hard, with each hit being strong enough to dent steel. A gasp of surprise jolted Naruto back to the present, as if he had been sleeping. He gasped for air and looked down to see Kimimaro, who was bleeding and wheezing. He slowly turned his attention to his shaking hands and stared at the red mark on them. When he looked at what made him gasp, one of his worst fears came true. Ino stood there shocked, as if she were seeing a monster. Naruto? She asked in a hesitant voice. Ino. Naruto's heart sank with fear like an arrow. No. No, no, no. I. There were only a few times when he felt so weak. Back when Mizuki shook him up and Hinata learned about the Kyokagen. Now, though. Naruto backed away slowly from Kimimaro, who was hurt, and Ino, who was scared. With each step, the acidic bubbles of his chakra cloak disappeared, and his face returned to its human form. Ino, I can. She put out her hand. Please. Give me a minute, Ino said, her voice shaking. To calm down, Ino took a deep breath and wrapped her arms around herself. Let's talk about it later. We need to deal with. At that very moment, a ninja in an Anbu uniform landed in the clearing. The person grabbed Kimimaro quickly and then vanished in a cloud of leaves. Someone spoke up, and then it was quiet again. That can't be good. Too many thoughts of the wave mission came to his mind. So, Jizenka began, that wouldn't happen to have been Konoha's Jinchuriki, would it? Wow, that woman might be smart. Then again, he might have been unfair. It was clear that the woman knew a lot about the world of shinobi because she was a Jonin. Of course she would know what demonic chakra feels like. If we do, I have no idea who that could be or what they hold. That was a lie and a half, but Jizenka didn't need to know that. Kakashi thought to himself, at least Naruto is safe and the Kyubi is still locked up. Jizenka raised an eyebrow and said, I call bullshit. Look, I may live out in the boonies, but even we hear about attacks from giant foxes. I know what a biju is and I know how they're handled. Kakashi looked at her and told her to stop. Look, even if I knew, what makes you think I'm going to share village secrets? If you know anything about biju, you'll also know that most villages usually keep their trump cards like that hidden. Putting your nose where it doesn't belong is going to end this friendship, and you'll just end up having to search for your student by yourself. The former Iwa. Nin did not say anything. Sorry, she finally said. I wasn't thinking. I've never met a Jinchuriki before, so I was just curious. I didn't realize they're that valuable to a hidden village. Hitaki said, okay, but don't go asking stupid questions. Now, can we please return to the task at hand? Naruto wasn't well known as Konoha's Jinchuriki, but that could be because of his age and the fact that he wasn't very good at being a ninja yet. That way should have stayed until he was strong enough to back such a title. But based on what's happened in the last few months, Naruto would be famous for very different reasons. It took Jizenka's mind off of things when he saw a rock mantis land on his shoulders. Its whispers were too quiet for him to hear, but Jizenka nodded every couple of seconds with one ear tilted toward its head. And with Jizenka's, okay, it took off and kept looking for evidence. He saw Jizenka start to pace back and forth. She only stopped when another mantis landed on her shoulder and told her what it had seen. The highly skilled mantises couldn't find any information about Orochimaru's whereabouts, even if they were a breed that was very good at hiding and spying. So far, they've looked at 3 places. The first was where Kakashi thought Naruto fought Orochimaru. The second was where Iruka fought the Sannin. And the third was where Shizuka was taken. All of them ended in a dead end. Jizenka, I don't want to say this, but the trail is cold, said Kakashi. As a response, he got a glare that could melt steel. Hitaki went on with a sigh. Orochimaru is a master of illusion. We've been hunting him since the end of the Yondaime Hokage's reign. This trail may be considerably warmer than others in the past several years, but we're not going to find him, not without another appearance. Kakashi cut him off with a raised hand when Jizenka tried to respond, but if we don't. The wise woman shut up after saying, I understand why you're doing such great things to save Shizuka. If I lost Naruto, Sasuke, or Sakura, I'd go to the ends of the world to find them. They mean a lot to me. However, the enemy we're dealing with here, we need to think rationally and calmly. He paused, letting what he said sink in. The girl shut her eyes. When she thought about what she had done over the last couple of hours, she wanted to hit her head against a tree. It was very rude of the Mantis Sage. She may have been very good at manipulating the Hokage, but what she did afterward was careless. Oh my goodness, she was acting like her niece. She let out a sigh of defeat. She said, I'm sorry. A thin smile ran across her lips. This behavior is most unbecoming of an active Jonin. I should be thinking with my head. Not with my heart. Kakashi smiled behind his mask. He could now work with her. It was like Minato. Sensei said, but the heart is where strength is. The Scarecrow said this. It's only when you think with the mind and fight with the heart that true strength is revealed. Kakashi was caught off guard when her smile turned silly. Sounds like something a fortune cookie once told me. But you know, I like it. The copycat smiled. I always thought my sensei was a fortune cookie, but he did say some stuff that stuck. After that, Jizenka got serious. Okay, so what's our next move? Kakashi put his finger on his chin. Now, Jizenka laughed, if I were a Sannin with a fetish for Kekkei Genkai and I found the ultimate one, where would I be? The redhead began to pace again while the Scarecrow leaned against a tree trunk. The moment Jizenka had an epiphany, she snapped her fingers. If I found the ultimate Kekkei Genkai, I'd find a way to observe it. And the best way to observe one is through combat. But where is there observable combat in this forest? As Kakashi's analytical mind looked at what they didn't have much of, his eyes got sharper. The next, and best, place to observe combat is the Chunin exam elimination rounds. However, there were a lot of students that passed the first exam this year, so there's a high likelihood that many will pass here as well. If that's the case, there will be a prelim. The fights there are observable. Well, it looks like we have a destination, she said with excitement as she turned to leave. But she stopped and looked at Kakashi with a smile on his face. Where exactly are we going? As Anko and Iruka left Ichiraku's, they walked along Konoha's main street while Anko's teacher explained how she would be trained. Iruka was upset that they were going to start Mitarashi's training today because that woman wanted them to. He still hadn't fully recovered from being chakra drained, but Anko had been very strong. He did have a few ideas for what to teach her. Iruka stepped around people and asked, "Have you done elemental training?" "I do a little of it," Anko said. "It's something I'd like to improve, though." The teacher said, "Yes. Most ninja begin their elemental training around High Chunin. Certain individuals begin it even earlier. However, I know some that make do without it. But with you, we're going to make it a part of your style. I also want to see if we can branch off from your, teacher's style." Anko gave him a raised eyebrow. She sighed. "Your style mirrors Orochimaru's too much. If you were to fight him, you'll be predictable. Well, I want to see if we can change that. To that end, I'd also like to have a chat with the snakes and see what kind of moves they have to offer." She gave the thought a raised eyebrow. "Okay, I'll admit it. My style follows my sensei's. Still, the snakes aren't exactly a talkative bunch." The teacher just shrugged. "There are ways around that. Can we please talk about something else? Then what elemental alignment is your chakra?" "Fire." He rubbed his chin. Anko asked, frowning at his thoughtful look. "What?" "I'm taking some time to think about how to teach you," Amino replied. "I'm not an avid fire element user, if you haven't already guessed." The person who calls snakes laughed. "No, I wouldn't have guessed, just give me the how to and I'll work from there." She sighed. That's how he thought things would go from the start. He hoped that Anko could at least find a skilled fire jutsu user who could teach her. It's too bad that there weren't many people who were good at the destructive element, even in the middle of Hai no Kuni. There were many people who loved to use fire, but not many were good enough at it to be useful. Iruka had a lot of work to do. Iruka didn't know they were at the training fields until he noticed that there were no electrical signatures for a short time. Iruka thought his favorite training ground would work just fine because he didn't want any unwanted attention or damage to property. Anko looked at how many scorch marks, craters, and broken trees there were. Some parts of the field had been worn down and healed, leaving a beautiful forest. Other parts were completely destroyed, which was to be expected on a training field that was used a lot. The plants were very thick because Iruka trained here. Lightning had put nitrates into the ground, which made the plants look incredibly healthy. "My favorite training area," Iruka told Anko as he walked up to her, ready to answer any questions she might have about the field. "Definitely shows," Anko said in a weak voice. The Chunin went by her. He said with a shy smile, "It's out of the way, which is what I need when I use my full power. The last time I went all out for training near the city, it took me months just to pay the damages. Since then, I take my training here so the power plant workers don't keep getting angry with me. Don't tell me that every blackout we've had in the past 12 years has been your fault," Anko said. Her face turned red, but she didn't say anything. She gave up on the subject because she knew the answer and said, "Okay, stupid question to ask. So, when do we start?" Mitarashi stood there and watched Iruka pick a leaf off of a tree branch. She knew what was going to happen, so she rolled her eyes as she took the leaf from his hands and burned it. There's nothing new there. Then Iruka smiled in a way that wasn't like her at all, which made Anko frown. She snapped, "What? You're supposed to keep the leaf from setting on fire," the teacher said with a laugh. Anko made a face. "That's ass backwards." "It may seem like that," Iruka explained, shaking his head, "but any true fire element master worth their Ryu will tell you otherwise. Fire is destructive. It grows, it burns until all in its path is swallowed whole in its rage. At the same time, it's passionate, strengthening, and purifying when channeled properly." Anko's face became less serious. That's not how she looked at it. Mitarashi was surprised that Iruka, of all people, knew that. Where did you learn that? He asked. The S. Rank Chunin said, when I was younger, I was looking into good ways to train in the elements. I found several good titles on the subject, but one had a really good perception on Kaiten. If you want, I'll lend you it. Yeah, Anko said in a strange way. That would help. She wasn't used to being so nice. People didn't like the idea at all because they knew he was Orochimaru's former student and was known as a cruel interrogator. It was hard enough to ask for the time of day, let alone a favor. It made her feel good that Iruka would do something so simple for her. Coming from Anko, it was embarrassing to say. Iruka took a new leaf and shot a small spark of electricity through the middle of it. This made the leaf darker on the inside while faint traces of red quickly grew bigger around the hole. He gave it to Anko right away. He told them to try again. Anko nodded and tried to stop the black from spreading, but her chakra sped up the process and set the leaf on fire right away. She couldn't believe it when she looked back at Iruka and saw the same sly grin on his face. He would have to pay for this later. At least for now, she took another leaf from him and did it again. This time, though, each leaf turned into ash. When they got to the 8th leaf, Anko got angry and stomped the ground like a child having a temper tantrum. Iruka did nothing but laugh at her antics. He asked, "Want to take a break?" It was a "yeah" sound. Anko watched Iruka walk toward a big tree for shade, but her eyesight got worse than it should have. When she saw where she was staring, she turned her face away with a blush. He was. Do not do that. Anko screamed to herself. Her partner thought that Iruka wasn't too bad looking. That's when the butterflies in her stomach came back with a box full of dynamite to kill her. The more Anko thought about Iruka, the worse her crush on her got. Hey, do you want to come over here with me? Iruka asked from where he was sitting on the ground. She didn't even see him sit down. The shade is very nice. She stumbled and said, yes. Sure. It looks like she was acting like the Hyuga heiress. For the love of. It had never been so painful to sit down anywhere before. Anko was only a foot away, but she was afraid to look at Iruka's face because she thought it would make her blush. Mitarashi thought that even the silence was loud, even though the teacher was looking out at the trees and buildings above them with a smile. She wasn't into love. Anko was the snake mistress of Konoha and a member of the T&I department. She was a scary person. Most men went out of their way to make room for her. But whenever Anko liked a cute guy, they'd run away like the Shinigami was following her. Because of this, she was sure that love was gross and that no one could look past her reputation for even 5 minutes. But Iruka. Anko finally had enough. The blush got worse as she stood up and looked at Iruka with all her eyes. It made Iruka look at her with worry. He asked, "What's wrong?" "Hey, Iruka, I was thinking. Goddammit." She yelled as she rubbed her face and got more angry. "Look, I really, it's like." Iruka's eyebrows got closer together. "Are you okay?" Anko paused and took a deep breath. Okay, look Iruka, to hell with this shit." Finally, she jumped at the teacher and stuck her tongue in his mouth. "She needs medical help," Ino said as she put a damp cloth on Sakura's forehead. Naruto whispered, "Tell me something I don't know." He could clearly hear her voice even though it was soft. It was the Yamanaka. She didn't think Uzumaki would hear her, so she didn't say anything about it. Instead, she focused on Sakura while she cared for the sick girl. Hikaru and Choji were sitting on a nearby log when Choji asked, "What happened?" His mouth was full of chips. Naruto sighed and pushed himself off the tree he was leaning against. He thought about all the problems his team had been having since the exam started. Some asshole named Orochimaru bit Sasuke and Sakura. But the place where he bit them has strange marks. When the name of traitor Asanin was brought up, Team 10 froze. Choji almost yelled out loud, "Did you just say Orochimaru?" "What?" Naruto asked, shocked by the surprise on the faces of his old classmates. "The guy can't be that tough. I mean, I cut off his arm." "You cut off his arm?" Ino's eyes were so big they were about to pop out and roll around on the ground. "Hey, it wasn't a big deal." "Okay, maybe it was. That guy was freakishly strong, Uzumaki said to himself more than to anyone else. He kicked my ass hard. But you still cut off his arm? Shikamaru asked again, but his brain couldn't figure out that Naruto, of all people, had cut off Orochimaru's arm. There's no way. Maybe it was some lookalike. The blonde girl sighed. What was so important about facing Orochimaru? Teme? Sasuke, who was sitting nearby, didn't care about the fuss his teammate was making. Instead, he rubbed the cursed seal in the red, itchy skin around it. The Uchiha had a clear memory of that chakra, that sick, tainted spiritual energy, and how powerful and strong it made him feel. Like a drug, it was hard to stop using, and Sasuke wanted more like a new drug addict. But he was also afraid of that evil power, especially since he knew who put the seal there. Even worse, he attacked a teammate for no reason. Even though he and a lot of other people would love to make Naruto eat dirt any day of the week, Sasuke was polite enough to say he was wrong. During his chakra high, Sasuke couldn't figure out why his desire to find Naruto's Kekkei Genkai had taken over his thoughts. And even now, his interest was just on the edge of his mind. Since the wave mission, his desire to figure out what was going on with his teammate never went away. Instead, it grew stronger until it exploded at the worst possible time. Those bright, changing pupils on a cyan background. He remembered that brief image too well, and it only made him want to. Sasuke shook his head to get rid of those thoughts. It wasn't the right time. Sasuke sighed and walked over to Sakura to take his mind off of things. Things were getting worse for her. It was the same as Wave. The way Sakura looked then and now was the same, helpless. It hurt Sasuke to see her like that. He didn't want to lose her if he could help it. Guys. The Uchiha started, but two blondes arguing over him drowned him out. You dummies, you three should have run. Ino yelled, almost yelling. Naruto replied, hey, we tried. And easily matched Yamanaka's volume. But the bastard kept chasing us. We ended up having to fight him off. And seriously, he couldn't have been that strong. Shikamaru spoke with a drawl, you do know that Orochimaru was running for Yondaime Hokage before he went missing, right? Uzumaki had no idea what to do. Oh, really? That's a scary thought. It was hard to picture the snake jerk in the same league as the Yondaime. Naruto once more wondered how they got away. No, that wasn't right. Instead, they were let out alive. He asked out loud, then how was I able to cut off his arm? Guys. Sasuke yelled, drawing everyone's attention to himself. Sakura needs medical attention. Now. Shikamaru spoke first, and then there was silence. Well, you have two options. Drop out of this exam and get her to the hospital, or somehow magically produce the other scroll you need so you can get to the tower, where the nearest medical facilities are, I might add. Sorry to be Mr. Raincloud, but those are your options. If Sasuke didn't say anything, he turned his soft gaze to Sakura. He rubbed his hands together and growled, damn it. Shika, what scroll do we have? Ino asked out of the blue, throwing everyone off. The Nara sighed because they had also thought about this plan. We have an Earth Scroll, but wouldn't it be better to send them to the hospital outside of the forest? Shika wanted to leave the forest too, so it might have been a bit selfish of her not to offer the scroll right away. And it would be even better if he could knock Sasuke and Naruto out of the test. Both of them were dangerous opponents. Ino glared at Nara because he knew where his mind was going, which made Shikamaru cringe back. To hell with this exam. Sakura is dying. You said it yourself. The only place to get any medical attention here is the tower. Unless some random medic. Nin walks. The noise of a branch breaking cut through the clearing and silenced the group right away. 5 people rushed to the source and saw Kabuto Yakushi standing on the edge of the area with his hands up and a sheepish smile on his face. Oh no. The older teen said in a shy voice. Wrong place. I think I'll just head. False alarm, Ino told the others. Oh, it's just you, Choji said with a sigh. We were worried it would be someone like that Suna team, they're scary. While everyone else relaxed, Naruto stayed alert. That smile made his skin crawl. It was too nice. And Kabuto didn't make sense to him. How could someone take this test at least 7 times and still not learn anything? Yakushi should understand that getting lost is not a good idea. Naruto didn't like this person at all. Was he being too suspicious? Naruto could argue that like a lawyer does when arguing that a person is not guilty. Being sure that everyone is out to get you wasn't crazy. And that smell of snakes makes me wonder if this guy took a bath with snakes. Sasuke asked in a mean voice, "What are you doing here?" Kabuto fixed his glasses, and his smile became more sheepish. "Just got separated from my team. I heard voices and thought it was them. I guess I was wrong." Naruto said, "That's great," but his smile wasn't friendly. "Now, how about you go away?" Ino told him, "Naruto. He's a Konoha genin. We need to look out for our own, you know." "Yeah, but this is the Chunin exam." The Jinchuriki replied, staring at Ino with a sharp gaze. That smell of the snake really bothered him. For all we know, his teammates could be hiding and waiting. "Ino, I have to agree with Naruto," Shikamaru said as he walked up to the blonde. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but Naruto's got the right idea. We can't be sure if he's an enemy." "Yeah, but..." "Naruto, I thought your eyes were blue." Ino said out loud. "Huh, what?" Naruto asked, startled by the sudden change in subject. That's when he realized how naked his face felt and how heavy one of his pockets felt because of a broken pair of glasses. "Oh, crap." Naruto moaned to himself, his chest heaving with fear. "Your eye color is red," Shikamaru said, looking genuinely interested in what was going on as if it were a puzzle. "Back in the academy I specifically remember you having blue eyes. But how is that possible? Eye color doesn't change." Uzumaki couldn't come up with a reason quickly enough to clean up this mess. As Ino walked up to Naruto and looked closely at the medical oddity, he asked quickly, "What happened? How did they change? Did you get hurt? Were they always like that?" He looked around like a rat trying to get out of a tight spot. They weren't really close to telling everyone that the Kyubi were still alive, but it was still very uncomfortable. If they were still missing the nail with the hammer, they could easily get back on track and hit it right on the mark. He didn't need another secret to be leaked. From the side, Sasuke saw Shikamaru and Choji look at their friend's strange behavior, while Ino looked at Naruto's eyes with only a few inches between their faces. Sasuke thought it was funny to see Naruto writhe in pain because the platinum blonde didn't care about any space at all. How long ago did Naruto's eyes change color? They looked fine before the wave mission. But for those stupid glasses, the Uchiha might have been able to tell when those blue eyes turned pigeon. Blood red. He still hated those things very much, even if it was just because they were a pain when Sakura and he tried to forget about them. Sasuke stopped thinking and looked at her with a suspicious look on his face. It was like someone flipped a switch. Details he had almost forgotten about started to fit together like a puzzle in his head, and it was called Naruto. "Naruto," Sasuke said to get everyone's attention. Back on the bridge in Wave, Sakura mentioned feeling a weird chakra. Naruto could feel the color leaving his face. He wasn't the only one whose mood changed, though. Ino tensed up as she thought about Naruto's slit eyes. "She just said it was scary because she couldn't explain it well," Sasuke said. "Did that change your eye color? Is that why you wore those goggles?" "That might have everything to do with what I saw." For a short time, Sasuke saw an image of pupils that were reflecting light. It was only there for a moment, as fleeting as the blink of an eye. He could feel his heart beat faster. He couldn't remember that Sasuke was the Rookie of the Year for a reason. To back up his fighting skills, he'd need to be able to think things through. Naruto still couldn't give Uchiha the credit he deserved, which made him mad because he had always thought Uchiha was stupid when it came to analysis. "What, with that handy Sharingan?" "Excuse me," Kabuto, who had been forgotten up until this point, spoke up. "Would it be problem if I took a look at your eyes, Naruto? Kun? I might be able to pinpoint what might have changed your eye color. Off the top of my head, I can name off several conditions that would elicit such changes." After some thought, Naruto nodded, if only to stop everyone from asking even more questions. Kabuto made some changes to his glasses and walked over to the blonde, pulling out a small medical pack. He took out a small flashlight and shined it into Naruto's eyes, watching as the pupils shrank. Kabuto said, How interesting." Which made Naruto shift in an awkward way. Ino became more and more scared and asked, "What? What is it?" Her overactive imagination made up 22 different stories in which Naruto died in horrible, painful ways. "It's a rare disease called chakra eye, or Yukatachi's disease," Kabuto said with a smile as he put his medical supplies back where they belong. As Ino clutched her head in pain, she almost screamed, "I knew it. Naruto's going to die." Naruto let out a sigh of relief inside. That was so not true, but who was he to question his luck? Kabuto laughed happily. Far from it. Yukatachi's disease is far from lethal. Although disease in the name, it's not really a sickness. More of a condition. He then asked, "Okay, what is it?" It's a condition that affects the iris, usually caused by hemorrhaging of the iris eye muscle. Normally, that would lead to a condition called heterochromia, which is mismatched eye color. However, Yukatachi's disease is caused when the eyes are exposed to incredibly high amounts of chakra, causing the iris to hemorrhage and permanently alter their color. It doesn't affect sight, just changes the eye color. It's rare, though. Most sufferers usually have a bad experience with a botched genjutsu or high exposure to huge amounts of chakra. Oh, Ino muttered, taking a deep breath after her emotional outburst. There was already a gravestone for Naruto chosen by her. That was an awfully large amount of chakra he used. It did explain why the eyes turned different colors. But she wouldn't say what she was thinking. Ino was going to do the same thing that Naruto did and keep quiet. Ino liked to talk about other people, but she knew that some secrets shouldn't be shared. Naruto rubbed the side of his face and laughed nervously. Yeah, I really don't want to talk about what happened. I wouldn't want to either, Ino thought with a frown while biting her bottom lip. When Naruto saw Yamanaka's move, he swallowed a lump in his throat. He asked Benton Sama to make sure that Ino kept her mouth shut. Thank goodness she hadn't said anything rude yet. But how long would that last? As Shikamaru muttered, "Geez, I don't even want to know what happened, it's troublesome enough hearing about the after-effects." For Sasuke, it raised more questions than it answered. What did really happen on Wave's Bridge? What did Naruto have to do with it? What does it all mean? Again, it hit him how little he knew about his secretive teammate. Naruto was the most mysterious person Sasuke knew, even though he was loud and rowdy. Only the 5 Kage seemed to know more than everyone else. The black man bowed to the blonde. "Thank you very much, Naruto-kun, for giving me a chance to look at such a rare condition. As a medic. Medical oddities are always intriguing. You're welcome?" Naruto said in a strange way. But then he got it. "Wait, you're a medic?" Kabuto took a blink. Yes I am." "Then you can help Sakura-chan. The medic." Nin smiled at him again. "Well, if I can be of service." As Naruto grabbed the older boy's hand and dragged him over to Sakura, the older boy lost all feeling of doubt. When Kabuto got free from the blonde's grip, he got out his first aid kit and got to work. The rest of Team 7 and Team 10 watched with bated breath, hoping beyond hope that their friend wasn't lost and could be saved. After 15 minutes of tense silence, Kabuto finally spoke, but in a way that no one liked. "Oh, this is quite dreadful." Everyone stopped taking breath. Ino was the first to get her bearings again, and her voice was shaking. What is it?" He put his hand to his chin. "The chemical used to put this seal on her body is making her sick," he said, pointing to the 3 curved lines on her neck. "She needs medical attention I can't give her." Naruto yelled, "Goddamn it." He then charged his hands with the Kyubi's chakra and hit the side of a tree hard. As a glimmer of hope appeared in everyone's soul, however, they said, "I might have a way to get her to the tower." Sasuke asked quickly, "What do we need to do?" The teen with silver hair switched his glasses around. "I need to speak to Naruto-kun first." And all of a sudden, Naruto had 10 times more reason to think Kabuto was guilty. That snake smell seemed to be much stronger. "Alright, what do you?" Naruto was cut off when he fell backwards into a tree and a hand wrapped around his neck and pointed at his head. Kabuto's smirk turned nasty, and he liked how the Jinkoriki's red eyes made people feel shocked. Naruto said, "I didn't like you from the start of this exam, even though someone was pressing on his voice box and his eyes were getting narrow. I couldn't figure out why, but I think it's clear now. You're not at all the nice person everyone thinks you are. You are very smart, Naruto-kun," Kabuto said. "Right from the start of this joke, you thought I was guilty, but you never really got why. Veterans are the only ones who can feel that way. Being scared is not crazy when people are really after you. What do you want now?" When Naruto asked, the hand around his throat got tighter. His answer was, "Why didn't you copy Kimimaro? Kun's Shikyotsumatsu? Oh, so you were the bastard that saved his ass." One of Naruto's eyes moved. "You know, that was really rude of you and not very creative either." "As if I were you." The boy had to stop talking when Kabuto squeezed him harder. "Answer me." Uzumaki didn't answer. Instead, he just gave her a mean look. Kabuto wasn't happy, so he slowly dug his fingers into Naruto's throat, making the younger boy struggle to breathe. Kabuto only knew something was wrong when Naruto's eyes changed from solid to slits. Before he could do anything, Naruto swatted Yakushi's hand away so quickly that he almost missed it. Then he drove his sharp nails into Yakushi's chest. That Kabuto was able to move just enough to only get cuts on his skin showed how good his reflexes were. Kabuto jumped to a nearby branch to get away from the danger, holding his hurt side. The traitor looked amused, even though blood was running from his fingers. He didn't think Naruto would be able to control the Kyubi's chakra so well. He pressed his glowing hand to his side and closed the wound quickly and well. Naruto told Kabuto, "You know, I really hate that jerk Orochimaru." He was being defensive, even though his eyes and nails were returning to normal. "I swear, I see another asshole like him, I might go nuts." As Naruto rolled his legs up to launch, Kabuto raised both hands in defense. This made the boy with the sunburn stop and narrow his eyes. While keeping an eye on the crowd of people, Kabuto reached into his bag, pulled out a scroll, and threw it to Naruto. Carefully, Naruto looked it over. When he saw that it was an earth scroll, his eyebrows shot up past his hairline. "Orochimaru. Sama is interested in you and your teammates," Kabuto said as he adjusted his glasses. "I have too. Because of this, we'll both be very close to you. If you don't show up for the test, there will be consequences." "What kind of consequences?" Naruto asked with care. The Kabuto laughed. "I wouldn't think about that if I were you. In fact, I'd be more worried about finishing this test before those effects happen. After all, isn't Sakura-chan, your teammate, in a tough spot? She needs to see a doctor right away." When Haruno's name came up, Naruto got a chill up his spine. What did that snake freak do Sasuke and her? Kabuto answered in a vague way, "Oh, nothing really wrong. Orochimaru. Sama only showed them a little of the power he can give them. That offer also goes out to you." Naruto moved in an awkward way. "Sorry, but I'm not into old guys with a fetish for keke genkai." Yakushi turned his head away. "I'm afraid you'll come to Orochimaru. Sama, one way or the other." Uzumaki was fed up. In a blur of speed, Naruto came back to life in front of Kabuto with his fist full of chakra. Kabuto just smiled and disappeared in a blur of leaves as Naruto's attack split the trees in half. "Will you sit down?" Shikamaru told or asked. "You're making me nervous now." Ino moved back and forth and bit her bottom lip. "They've been gone for too long. There must have been something." Sasuke spoke this time. "Be calm. Naruto is like a fungus on your feet. Several people have already tried to kill him, but he has stayed strong. Just. Not at all. Leave now. He was as determined as a cockroach, that's for sure. And bad luck on top of that. Something very special would have to happen to kill Naruto." "Really?" Ino asked, not believing it. The demon brothers from Kiri, Momochi Zabuza, and his apprentice Haku, all four of which were Nuke. "Nin. Komoruda Shizuka trying to knock us out of the exam. Avoid that bitch if you meet her. I think that Gaara guy might have tried something, but I don't know on that one, and Orochimaru definitely made several attempts now on his life if the Kimimaro guy is anything to go by," Uchiha tallied up. "There might have been more, but you'll have to ask Naruto. Its mouth dropped so far that a bird could land in it and make a nest." In fact, a familiar voice said, "Gaara hasn't tried to kill me yet, but he's probably looking for me right now to do that." Everyone turned around as Naruto walked into the clearing without Kabuto Yukashi. No one missed the scroll, though, as he moved his arm. Ino let out a happy sigh. "It's okay. Who is Kabuto?" Naruto made a face and threw the scroll to Sasuke instead of answering the question. He frowned as he looked it over, but when he saw the earth scroll, his eyes lit up. "You didn't." Yamanaka almost let out a screech. "No, I didn't do that. A group of genin from AIM attacked us. It looked like they were following our group and waiting for one of us to split up so they could take a hostage."
He lied. Kabuto threw the scroll to me and then drew them away. It would have been wrong to lie about even a small part of what they knew. Shikamaru sighed with relief. At least we don't have to give up our scroll anymore. It's troublesome, but if we want Sakura to get medical treatment, we need to move now. Choji said, but we can't go into the tower without another scroll. The Nara laughed. I have a plan. But we'll talk about it when Sakura gets to the tower. Everyone agreed and nodded. Sakura was picked up by Sasuke while Naruto got the rest of their supplies from the hollow. As soon as Naruto came back, Teams 7 and 10 ran at full speed toward the tower. Naruto stuck around in the back. When Ino saw this, he joined him. He didn't pay attention to her because he knew what she was going to talk about. Look, Ino said quietly, getting Naruto's attention even though he was trying to block her out. I don't know what happened back there or what kind of power that was. Based on what I've seen, you must know what it is but are trying to hide it. Please tell me about it. I won't tell anyone else. I'm not going to think badly of you. You say that now. Naruto made a noise. I'll tell you, but you have to promise not to tell anyone about it. Deal. Okay, then. I'll tell you when no one is around. Did you deliver the scroll? Orochimaru asked, but he didn't bother to look at the whirlwind that was announcing the arrival of his servant. Kabuto said with a laughing tone, I have to admit, it's awfully nice of you to help them. The snake looked greasy. Yes, I know that's not like me at all. I'm just interested, though. I'm interested in how Naruto-kun does. I'm sure Gaara would be a great way to see how strong he is. How are Sakura, Chan and Sasuke-kun now? The smile on Yakushi's face turned evil. Sasuke-kun is getting good at using the power. I'm sure he'll come to Otogakura without being stopped if I push him enough. His smile went away. It was the normal 3 days for Sakura to live. Her body is still reacting badly, though. I'll give her one more day before things get clear. The Sanin's turned to frown now. Is that so? He thought Sakura's case sounded a lot like one he knew. That way, the genin wouldn't want to use the power of the cursed seal. But that might change. Sakura, unlike Anko, was young and easy to influence. Even so, Orochimaru could still use her for other things, even if they were ugly. Also, Kabuto said, cutting Orochimaru off in the middle of his thought, Naruto-kun showed more skill in controlling the Kyubi's chakra than we first thought. When I touched him, I could feel strong demonic chakra in his coils. This makes me think that he didn't use the Kyokagen when he was fighting Kimimaro not because he didn't want to, but because it was being stifled. The snake man said, that is a problem. It was that Beej, again. He didn't even know if he could take over Naruto-kun's body with the beast's help. And then to find out that the Kyubi could stop the Kyokagen. The Fuinjutsu skills of Orochimaru were not very good. He would freely admit that it was one of his weak spots among the main shinobi arts. The materials and research, on the other hand, were his to use. He would figure out a way to stop the fox and take Naruto-kun's body if he had enough time. What's up with Kimimaro-kun? Kabuto, his body was under a lot of stress during his fight with Naruto-kun. That guy won't last. His death will be a great loss for us, Orochimaru replied. I'd like my next container to copy the Shikyotsumatsu while Kimimaro-kun is still alive. It is possible for the Kyokagen to copy Kekkei Genkai from a dead body, but I don't want to try it. Kabuto made a funny face. I get it. If things go well with the exams, I might even have a plan to make sure it happens. While her youngest brother brutally crushed a Kusa genin, Temari winced. Blood and sand flew across the field like a macabre rain. Gaara was holding the umbrella he stole from the AIM team they had met earlier, so he wasn't affected by the red rain. Outraged, the genin's teammates tried to fight back but got stuck in the sand. They too turned into red stains in a matter of seconds. Gaara only had bad feelings about things. He seemed to want to kill everyone ever since that wave of demonic chakra hit him. No matter what he did, Shikaku's screaming would not stop. No matter who it was, killing that person would make him feel as alive as killing Uzumaki. He was going after Uzumaki and the other Jinchuriki. I'll find you, Gaara whispered, and the sand moved around eagerly. Is it just me? Konkuro asked Temari, or is Gaara acting more aggressively than usual? In other words, he's actively looking for teams to attack. Most of the time, he just lets them come to him. It was real. Gaara rarely went out and actively hunted for food. But Gaara's desire for blood has dramatically grown since they walked into Konoha. And it never got full. When they got to the forest, Gaara took the lead, which doesn't happen very often either. It looked like their brother was out hunting. The thought made Tamari shiver. He's after someone. The fool who caught Gaara's eyes should be damned. She walked into a confusing mass of swirling black formlessness that was both disorienting and peaceful. It was cold, but it was comfortable. Her mind was cold, dark, and empty. As she spun around, she saw the shapeless darkness fade away like paint chipping away until a new picture appeared. Something small and cozy took its place. It had black and white tiles, a fireplace at one end, and black curtains hanging on the walls. There was a vase on a cast iron stand where the curtains parted. Each vase had black flowers with black berries hanging from them. The room had an odd smell, like a mix of metal and the sickeningly sweet smell of decay. Shizuka Komaruta looked down as something wet caressed her bare feet and knew right away where the strange smell was coming from. So much blood was in the puddle that it formed a river that lapped gently against her feet, washing out a closed door and disappearing just under the gap. Shizuka forced her eyes to look up while swallowing bile. What she saw was an even more horrifying and horrible picture than the one at her feet, a gothic themed tea party. In the middle of the room was a small table with a porcelain teapot, 2 teacups full of a thick red liquid, a basket of white apples, and a small tray with 4 pastries, 2 of which had silver pong balls on them? These 2 also had pong balls on them, but these ones had gray rings around them. But when Shizuka looked more closely, she saw that the first set of eyes had broken irises and the other set had pupils. The chairs, though, were the scariest thing. There were 4 high-back black velvet chairs around the table. One sat off to the side, by itself. It was clearly ready for her. One was facing away from her, and the view of the third was blocked by the second chair. Shizuka was sitting on the fourth and facing herself. The twin spoke up with a smile and a playful hello. Her eyes were wrinkly with laughter. "How nice of you to join us." The light from the fireplace made eyes that were golden, pearly, and looked like they were sharply defined with eyeliner. You had to be very strong willed for Shizuka not to flinch or show how anxious she was feeling. "What the hell is this?" There was a sign in the other chairs that said, "Please sit down. We've all been waiting for you." Before Shizuka could figure out what was going on, she found herself slowly and carefully moving toward the empty chair. The sharp look from her shadow made her cringe. For every step that was taken, the smell of death got stronger. "Come now. I thought you were afraid of nothing," the fake joked with a wry grin on her face. Shizuka didn't pay attention to her and instead cautiously watched the people in the other 2 chairs. Komaruta asked, "Who's in those chairs?" Her chest twisted, and she stopped in her tracks. A blonde hair stuck out of one of the chairs. The double figure laughed and raised an eyebrow. "Why don't you come and find out?" With a sigh, the redhead closed her eyes and took her place as the guest of honor. Even though the chairs were comfortable, as if they were made just for her, Shizuka moved around nervously on the black velvet. "Don't close your eyes," the shade told her in a funny way. "You'll miss the party." She didn't want to, but she did it anyway, staring down at the white table cover. The time it took her to raise her eyes seemed like an infinite amount of time. On the other hand, she almost closed her eyes when she saw what she saw. 2 dead bodies in torn tuxedos were sitting in the high-back chairs next to her. Both of them were eviscerated so badly that they couldn't be recognized. Their throats were just ribbons of dripping flesh, their faces were torn apart, and their cores had been stabbed a million times. The ocean of blood at her feet came from their wounds. The person on her right, whose black hair was tangled and tangled with blood, she didn't recognize. No matter how torn apart they were, Shizuka could always tell who the other was: Uzumaki Naruto. Shizuka, her voice, which was so soft and smooth, broke the awful silence. When Komaruta turned to look at her twisted reflection, she was scared and wide-eyed. The being picked up an apple and bit into it. She sloshed red juice from the sides of her mouth onto her white nightgown. The coy smile Shizuka got, which was filled with vermilion liquid, was a nightmare. "We have much to talk about." There's nothing to talk about, the fiery head of hair said. Her face didn't seem to be changed, but she was quickly digging a hole in her heart out of fear. It looked like the fake Shizuka pouted. What? Aren't the decorations correct? Isn't this what you wanted? She whispered, not like this. As a chill went up and down her spine. Oh, said the double, and their smile turned mean. She waved her arm across the bodies in the other chairs and asked, you mean them? No, this is what you want. For our enemies to perish. But don't worry. Soon, we'll be strong enough to vanquish all of those obstacles. But, her copy stopped her. Now chill out and enjoy the party. Here. The shadow pulled a white fruit from the basket and held it out to the real Shizuka Komaruta with a funny, twisted grin on its face. Have an apple. Shizuka didn't move right away as she looked at the fruit, which seemed harmless. The ivory apple was so pretty that she almost wanted to taste it. But it felt so wrong to even look at it. Take it, her partner hissed, making a sound that sounded a lot like a snake. Take it, and make all of your sorrows and fears disappear. Make your dreams come true. A shaking hand reached out against her will. Shizuka's senses begged her to stop, telling her that this was a mistake that she could not fix. But her body ignored them all. She carefully took the apple from her shadow's grasp, brought it to her lips slowly, and then used her teeth to break the apple's thin, pale skin. It had a bloody taste. When Shizuka woke up, she felt like she was heaving. But since she didn't have anything in her stomach to throw up, her body was happy to cough up mucus. Even as she woke up and the remnants of her sleep were scattered, the coppery tang of the ivory, blood filled apple continued to attack her taste buds. She would never eat anything apple related again. Shizuka's eyes were filled with so much light that the bitter taste on her tongue was drowned out by the pain shooting through her head. She barely turned her head away, but someone quickly put it back in place. She opened her mouth to swear at the person, but all that came out was a hoarse cough. How strange. That familiar, oily voice. Orochimaru. Oh my god, she wanted to kill him. Indeed. She had no idea who this jerk was, but she was going to kill him too. The jerk had the nerve to laugh. Who would have thought your Junjutsu would affect the Genzome in such a way? After his words hit home, I felt a huge wave of panic. What was that about her Kekkei Genkai? Did they take away her valuable skill? Uncontrolled anger erupted, and a snarl came out of her mouth. Shizuka pulled on her chakra without realizing it. Even the world changed for a very short time before her very small reserves ran out and the effect ended before it even started. But it was enough to make the Sannin who was already down and his servant jump away in shock. The squire laughed. Wonderful. Her Kekkei Genkai is a truly dangerous thing. Orochimaru agreed, adding a funny note, Shikusa. Chan does have a lot of skills. I'm going. Shizuka choked out between breaths. To kill you. Kabuto. Kun, please put Shizuka Chan back under the spider. Man said. I have use for her, but certain precautions must be taken. As soon as Komaruta tried to say something, something sharp hit her in the neck. Right away, she could feel the edges of her vision getting darker. It's a strong sleep aid. Within seconds, she fell asleep without having any dreams. Team 7 and Team 10 had split up a while ago, leaving Sasuke, Naruto, and a clone to rush through the canopy while Sakura was asleep. From the very beginning, their time in Training Area 44 was hell. They were quickly split up, with Naruto fighting Shizuka Komaruta and Sasuke and Sakura losing to Orochimaru. The bad things got even worse when two members of Team 7 were hurt, leaving Naruto, without Kyokagen, alone. Lastly, there was the follow up with Kagaya Kimimaro, Orochimaru's servant. After everything was over, Kabuto gave them an earth scroll, but not before making a very bad threat. They didn't feel better as they ran down the last few steps to the tower in the middle of the Forest of Death. Naruto and Sasuke knew it even though they didn't say it. They were running from one hellish pit to another. Soon after Ino, Shika, and Cho left, Naruto told Sasuke the truth about how he got the scroll they needed, leaving out any private details about Biju or Kekkei Genkai. Sasuke's frown showed his teeth. Lovely. We're being stalked. Couldn't have called it better. Naruto agreed with the Uchiha for once. The copy put in a chip. A creepy guy with a fetish for young teens no less. Naruto, Sasuke played it straight. If your clone wasn't carrying Sakura, I would have killed it for making that observation. Stand in line. I want a piece of him first, the Uzumaki agreed with his teammate again. That was a bad idea. Even though they talked, it didn't slow them down much. They were already making great progress. The forest was getting dark, but they would get to the middle of it before it got dark. In fact, they were both expecting to see the compound soon. Why is that weirdo so interested in us? Sasuke asked out loud, ignoring the trees that were moving quickly. The truth was not a clue, Naruto said. He knew just what the snake lover was after. Sakura and I got bit, but why didn't you? They said, if I knew the answer, I'd tell you. The Uzumaki also had that thought. He seemed very interested in him, so why didn't he get one of those weird seals? Something to think about when they were safe. The only sound that could be heard was the wind blowing past their ears. I just had a bad thought, Sasuke said. Naruto made a noise. Come on, prick. What else could you add to our already impressive shit list? The third day is coming to a close, which means the exam is more than halfway finished. And the Uchiha made a face. Because everyone is running out of time, there's going to be a scramble for scrolls. We happen to have both scrolls and we're a teammate short. If we meet anyone on the way to the tower, we're going to be considered easy targets. Then Naruto moaned, crap. He knew they were still in a lot of danger. Even if we can probably beat their asses, everyone will come after us. Listen, loser, Sasuke said, and Naruto gave him a dirty look. We're down a teammate, my chakra is acting funny because of the damn seal, and you're the only one capable of heavy fighting. Even then, I'm being generous. Seriously, if we get into a fight, we run. We don't stop, we don't antagonize anyone. We just run. The Uzumaki replied, calm down, jerk. After the last few days and with Sakura still out, I'll stay away from. The blonde looked ahead and smelled something familiar. Oi, heads up. The tower is ahead of us. Even though they were both relieved, they didn't calm down. They kept their guard up even as they ran past the tree line. Now would be the time to attack if they were going to get hit. But as they got closer to the compound's doors, they felt the stress of the test slowly lift off their shoulders. Naruto and Sasuke finally calmed down when the doors shut behind them. They then fell against a wall. The clone, which was low on chakra, held Sakura against the wall across from them before disappearing. Naruto glanced at the writing on the wall and muttered, without heaven. What the hell? Hey, use your pink eye and see if there are any hidden messages or something. Sasuke growled back, don't insult my Sharingan. The Uzumaki was proud to say, it's not that awesome. The blonde knew how to use the pinwheel eye, but Sasuke didn't know it. Besides, it only works on what you can see. It's not like the Byakugan which lets you see even through the back of your head. When the hell did you become an expert in Kekkei Genkai? The Jinchuriki didn't say that out loud, but it's possible that it was because of this Kekkei Genkai that lets me copy other Kekkei Genkai, which I'm having trouble using again. Still, Sasuke did what he was told, even if it was just to silence his teammate. As the Sharingan stood up to look around, his eyes lit up, but his shoulder hurt so badly that he couldn't look around. As soon as the boy with raven hair put his hand on the tattoo that was bothering her, she made him kneel down. Naruto could only slam his palms together in anger. Let me guess, it's disrupting your chakra. At least once in a while you can use your brain, Sasuke said as he slowly stood back up. The boys heard a very faint chime that said, open the scrolls. It was as loud as a speaker to them. Naruto yelled, Sakura. Chan. They ran over to her and Naruto knelt down next to Haruno, while Sasuke bent down. It looked like Sakura was right outside of the Shinigami's door. Her eyes had dark rings around them, and her skin looked a little ghostly. She was still awake though, which was all the boys could ask for. Not after what they went through. Sasuke asked, are you okay? I'm not sure, she whispered, her eyes so cloudy that she could hardly see Sasuke. My chakra feels weird, and that spot hurts. Where that snake freak bit you? Naruto went on, looking closely at the strange, curved marks on her neck. She let out a tired breath and closed her eyes a few seconds later. Sasuke shook Sakura and told her, stay with us. Don't go to sleep. Don't sleep. The Uchiha almost lost it when she didn't move, so he put his finger on her neck to make sure she was still alive. He felt a weak but steady pulse in his heart. He moved away from his teammates and pulled out 2 scrolls from his pack. "Hey, help me with these," he said. "The faster we get out of here, the faster Sakura gets help. And maybe we can figure out what that freak did to you and Sakura." Sasuke joined the blonde without saying anything and grabbed the heaven scroll. Both boys took a deep breath and opened their scrolls. The paper started smoking all of a sudden. The Uchiha knew right away what was going on. "Throw them away. They're summoning scrolls." Both threw the dangerous objects away, and when they hit the ground, they exploded into smoke. Naruto put his hands into the hand seal for Kage Bunshin no Jutsu and asked, "What's going on?" Sharingan active even though his shoulder hurt, Sasuke did what his teammate did. "Who knows? But we've come too far to back." Iruka's voice suddenly came through the smoke that was covering him, which scared both boys. "You've got to be kidding me." It was a peaceful end to the day in Konoha. As kids got ready for bed, lamps and lights came on, and stores got darker as owners got ready to go back to their families. It was a peaceful place to be. Except for a scream that echoed through the village and scared birds and animals, made babies cry, and scared the crap out of Morino Ibiki in his underground interrogation office. Anko Mitarashi screamed, "Fuck you, Naruto." Loud enough to shake the earth. The sight made Jiraiya laugh so hard that he fell from his tree into the trash can below. As soon as Kakashi saw his tired students walk into the building through the cameras, he ran to greet them. Jizenka chose to follow him, but he wouldn't tell her to stop because Naruto was the last person to see her niece. It looked like hell for them. You could tell they were poor because their clothes were so torn and dirty. Sasuke looked like he had been in a lot of bar fights because of all the skin damage on him. Naruto, on the other hand, didn't have a single scratch on his skin, but his clothes, which were almost rags, told a different story. Just like the boys, Sakura looked like she had been through a lot, and she wasn't moving around like the boys were. That scared Kakashi a lot, especially after what happened when she got Kinten. After running through a few halls, both adults stopped when they saw Naruto and Sasuke, with Sakura on their back, just entering the compound. It was weird that both of them looked haunted, like they had been put through 1,000 years of eldritch horrors. Jizenka asked with a raised eyebrow, "Are your students okay?" They looked like they had another run. "In with that Ibiki fellow." Kakashi asked with raised eyebrows, "Naruto, Sasuke, what's wrong?" Naruto whispered, "I felt a part of myself die that I'll never get back." He looked like he was about to throw up and was speechless. Sasuke's left eye twitched in a strange way. "I had my Sharingan on. Now, it's forever burned into my mind." Kakashi asked with worry, what are you guys talking about?" "Wait, why didn't Naruto have his jacket on? He wore it when he walked into the compound, right?" You knew the answer to the strange question when Iruka walked around the corner with her hair down and no clothes on, putting on that jacket to cover up. She blushed and turned her back on him in a polite way. Even though Kakashi tried to hold it in, he lost all control when he smelled Iruka's sexy scent. The scarecrow laughed so hard that he fell over. Kakashi stood up straight to try to look somewhat professional, but he was failing horribly. Forgot you were on scroll duty, Didn't you?" "Yeah." Hataki turned into 2T. "That's absolutely horrible. But damn if isn't funny. The ozone in the air told us a lot. If the situation wasn't so desperate, I'd melt your face off." Kakashi asked Naruto, "Where are your goggles?" While sitting on a bed. "For that matter, what happened to the Kyokagen? And if I remember correctly, aren't your eyes supposed to be blue?" After sending Sasuke to take Sakura to the hospital, the 3 older ninjas gathered around Naruto and asked him to tell them about their time in hell. Each of them was interested in hearing about it for different reasons. They locked up a room that was empty and let the questions fly. Jizenka smiled back from her seat next to a desk as the blonde looked at her with worry. Why did you just say that in front of her?" "Long story short, she knows about the Kyokagen," the scarecrow said, noticing Iruka's raised eyebrow as she put on her new clothes. The Hataki rolled their eyes at the teacher, which meant that they needed more time to explain. "Anyways, back to the question. It wouldn't surprise me if everyone and their dog knew by now," the blonde said in a frustrated voice. Still, Naruto took off his broken goggles and showed them to everyone. The Uzumaki said, "They broke when I fought with this girl, Shizuka. She's this crazy bitch who's tried to kill me twice already." Jizenka jumped back. Thank you, Shizuka. Twice? Really? It was nice of you to leave your aunt with only messes to clean up. Oh, yeah. She was spying on me before the Chunin exams, and then when she found out about the Kyokagen she tried to kill me so that my team couldn't get into the second part. First time, she almost did until this old guy named Jiraiya saved me. Second time, even though I knew how to fight her, she almost won. If I hadn't activated this weird ability with the Kyokagen, I would have died. Jizenka made a face. She knew about the deathmatch in the forest, but she didn't know about the attempted murder before the exam. Very nice. Iruka creased his brows. Weird ability? Yeah, it was. Naruto took a few seconds to find the right words. He frowned thoughtfully and wondered if it was even possible to describe everything. The first time I used it, it was in a fight with Shizuka. The second time, it was against Orochimaru, and I remember how I felt. It was like something snapped, and I couldn't think straight. My thoughts were all over the place. And the longer the battle went on, the less clear it becomes. But then the chakra stopped because a certain bitch. That shall not be named used her chakra to stop everything. Kakashi and Iruka knew who or what he was talking about right away. Jizenka, on the other hand, hoped Naruto wasn't talking about her niece again. Okay, my coils were tight for a while, but they're starting to feel better. That's why my eyes are red. She quickly put the puzzle pieces together and said, so, you can't use the Kyokagen because that other chakra is blocking it. Yup. Kakashi rubbed his tired face and said, that explains a lot of things. How does this strange skill work? The genin tried to explain, well. I'm not sure. I mean, before everything went fuzzy, I'd say it's a lot like using other chakra. The former Anbu sighed and knew that was all they would get. Okay, what about Orochimaru? Naruto frowned as he thought back to the crazy snake person. He kicked Sakura and Sasuke's behinds while I was fighting Shizuka, he said. After beating them, he left this strange mark on them. It was one of the few times Iruka cursed, and he ran his hand over his face. As if things couldn't get worse. What is wrong? Kakashi asked with worry. They were marked by a cursed seal, Iruka said. Kakashi's one eye got hard as he recognized the word. Tomorrow, we need to bring Jiraiya Sama over here, she said. If not, those seals will cause trouble for Sasuke and Sakura. Excuse me, Jizenka asked, what's wrong with these cursed seals? But it's bad for the body, Iruka said. Anko was kind enough to tell him all about how her ex-sensei betrayed her. They're seals that can give a surge of chakra in some situations, even going so far as to give the user exotic abilities. What's worse is that the seals can make someone act in a bad way. There's no doubt that Orochimaru wants to corrupt those two for some reason. That's what that crazy snake person did? It was Naruto's bark. Don't worry about it, Kakashi told his student with one eye. We're going to talk to Jiraiya Sama, the man who saved you from Shizuka the first time, and ask him how to get rid of the evil effect of those seals. I would do it myself, but I'm afraid that what I make would be at best bad. Sama? Why? The genin asked. Iruka sighed. If you hadn't fallen asleep during that lecture, you would have known that Jiraiya Sama, Orochimaru, and Tsunade Sama, who you haven't met, were all together in the past and are famously known as the Sannin. They are some of the strongest ninjas Konoha has ever made. Oh, what? That Jiraiya guy is really strong? It didn't look like him. Kakashi said, no one really knows how strong he is, but I think he can beat either Iruka or me. Who knows, maybe even both of us, though I'm not sure how far. Fetched that is. He looked at the guy with wide eyes and said, dude, I should find this guy again and have him teach me some cool jutsu or something. Once more. We have other things to worry about right now, Iruka said, bringing the subject back to the original one. What else happened in the forest? The Uzumaki said, after Sasuke and Sakura were bitten, they got sick. For a couple of days, I pretty much just watched over them, hoping they'd get better or I'd get help. It took me a while to get that other chakra under my control too, especially since I lost it again. What else? She pushed Jizenka. Then this weirdo named Kimimaro attacked me with a Kekkei Genkai. He asked me to copy his Kekkei Genkai, which is named Shikyotsumatsu, for the snake. Bastard. But you couldn't because the Kyokagen was being stifled, Iruka explained, putting the name of the new Kekkei Genkai away at the same time. It sounded like something I knew. Naruto made a face and said, "Yeah, he almost killed me too. Until the other chakra got out of hand again, that is." "Wait, you're also a Jinchuriki?" Jizenka's eyes almost burst out of her head. Iruka let out a frustrated sigh as Kakashi made a facepalm. The Uzumaki got angry and threw up his arms. "Great. Shouldn't I have a secret that stays a secret?" "So your Biju's chakra is blocking the Kyokagen," Jizenka said, looking at Naruto like he was a specimen being looked at under a microscope. "Interesting." The blonde begged, "Please stop looking at me like you're going to dissect me. I had enough of that from Kabuto. Teme." He snapped his fingers to remember. "That reminds me. Yakushi Kabuto works as a spy. He also works for Snake. Bastard." The room filled with ozone right away. "Thank you, Naruto. I needed to know that. He also made threats against me." Naruto said, "He told me that if anyone from Team 7 dropped out, there would be consequences. But he also gave us an Earth Scroll, which was what we needed to pass." "It backs up what we thought," Jizenka said, looking directly at Kakashi. Iruka looked at the copycat and said, "Indeed." The Hitaki then gave an explanation, saying, "Jizenka San and I thought that Orochimaru would want a place to better observe the Kyokagen. It was possible that there would be a preliminary round this year because there were so many passing teams. No one should miss this chance to see the Genin. We should let Hokage Sama know," Iruka stated. "We might be able to set a trap." "It's what we thought too," Hitaki stated. "I'm hoping to get Tenzo in on this as well." "Okay, let me get this straight," the teacher said as she started to pace. "You guys got split up, so you fought Shizuka. San and Sakura and Sasuke fought Orochimaru. Then you went up to Orochimaru and talked to him. You watched Sasuke and Sakura for 3 days and then fought Kimimaro. When did Yakushi join in?" Naruto said, "Right after my fight with Kimimaro. Oh, and Ino, Shikamaru, and Shoji helped me with that guy." He then took a deep breath and said, "And Ino saw me using the other chakra." Another problem added to the pile. Kakashi sighed and ran his hand across his angry face. "Now we need to do damage control on the other end of the spectrum as well. Are you guys trying to hide the fact that he is a Jinchuriki?" "What?" Jizenka asked. Kakashi really wanted the woman to stay out of their business, but now that the secret was out, he knew she would. That way, she wouldn't get any ideas, like how to blackmail them again. The younger people in Konoha don't know Naruto's status, and we're trying to keep it that way. The villagers found a way to get around it, though, and taught their children to hate. It was clear that the plan to let Naruto grow up normally with his peers was not very well thought out. That Jinchuriki was desperately trying to ignore the subject at hand, but he was failing miserably. With each word, his face got darker. Jizenka pursed her lips and looked at the preteen with sadness. "I see. Why do so many people fear me?" "Now is not the time for that," she said as she shook her head in vain to get the memory out of her mind. "What are we going to do about Ino still?" Iruka asked, looking to his older brother for help. Everyone was shocked when Naruto said, "I was going to talk to her about it." Umino's face softened as he looked at his old student. "Are you sure?" The young man tried to hide how nervous he was about the conversation by shrugging. "I don't know what else to do." The teacher said, "Okay. But if things get worse, Kakashi or I will just tell Ino to follow the law. It's not ideal, but she won't say anything about it." "Who is going to tell the Hokage, by the way?" "I think it would be better if you did it," Kakashi said. "Jizenka San and I should watch the perimeter. Together, we should be able to tell the difference between Orochimaru and Yakushi Kabuto if they show up." That was Iruka's answer. "That's fine, then let's set things up. You need to rest, Naruto. I'm sure you need a break after everything you've been through. I forgot what it's like to sleep in a real bed." The blonde laughed. Sasuke sighed and looked down at Sakura's sleeping body. She looked so clean and fresh that no one would have known she had been through the forest of death. The Uchiha wished he could feel so calm. Sasuke was glad that the adults chose Naruto to explain everything. He wasn't feeling the constant rush of adrenaline or the constant fear of death hanging over his head, so his emotions were running wild. He couldn't even name all of them: excitement, relief, defeat, sadness, anger, bitterness, and so many more. When had he ever felt this way? He thought about everything that had happened to him since he became a genin, like an over. The top movie. The good times, the bad times, his interactions with his teammates, everything. Sometimes he felt like he was on top of the world, and other times he felt like he was just barely making it. When he thought about his life again, he had one question: why? The dimly lit room didn't say anything. The only sound that broke the silence was the beeping of machines that were attached to Sakura. He had a lot of questions in his head. Why did he care about what happened to his teammates all of a sudden? Why did it feel like everyone was out to get his team some days? How little did he know about his teammates? Why were Sakura and Naruto getting stronger while he stayed the same? Why was there such a big gap in power between him and Itachi? As he thought about his betraying brother, his teeth became very dull. Itachi, don't think I've forgotten about you, he said. The mean thought, on the other hand, caught Sasuke off guard. He couldn't remember the last time he really thought about his brother, days, months? He couldn't remember. There was a random thought about the elder Uchiha, but nothing else. Sometimes, he put thoughts of his murderous brother on the back burner in favor of talking to his teammates. When did he lose focus on his goals? Wasn't he a killer? Wouldn't he be at peace after turning his brother into a worm feast? But as soon as Sasuke looked at Sakura's still body, all the bad feelings left his face. So vividly did he remember the fight with Zabuza, Naruto's subsequent brilliance, and the training they did to get stronger. Soon after, they fought a dramatic battle against the missing Nin and his lackey, and Sasuke did the unthinkable by giving up his life for Naruto. After everything was over, he clearly remembered how he and Sakura failed to find out Naruto's secrets and instead fell for someone else's plans. Then there was the spar. Turned deathmatch against their blonde teammate. Sasuke was sure he would have won if Kakashi hadn't stepped in. When Sakura got sick, it made him feel things he hadn't felt in a long time. Hadn't he also bought her flowers for her stay in the hospital? Before the exam, he remembered watching. There are so many memories, but not a single bit of hate. As Sasuke laughed angrily, tears burned the edges of his eyes. He felt so much lighter when he thought about all that Team 7 had been through. Sadness turned into laughter and smiles, and Itachi's red eyes turned into a half forgotten nightmare. What do you and Naruto have to do with me? Why? Asked the Uchiha. No answer yet. He was an assassin, nothing more, nothing less, right? Jizenka sat on the edge of the compound and put her hands on her head. The talk with Kakashi's student made her think about a lot of things, some of which she thought she was done with. Jizenka was very proud and hopeful that her niece Shizuka would grow up to be the daughter her sister and brother in law had hoped for. Shizuka's personality was a lot like her dad's, with all that pride and all that, but her looks were all her mom's. Jizenka did her best to fix her niece's character flaws, but she also tried to be gentle so as not to break Shizuka's spirit. For all the good that did her. Why do so many people fear me? It was a terrible echo that reminded her that she had let Shizuka down at some point. That being said, Uzumaki Naruto had every reason to hate Shizuka. Her niece was letting a personal grudge that had no basis cloud her judgment, which led to hasty choices and failures that cost a lot. It was funny, though, because Shizuka was trying to kill the person who could connect with her the most. Still, Orochimaru shouldn't have to hurt anyone, not even her niece who wanted to be an Avenger. Jizenka prayed to whatever would listen that her sister's daughter came back unharmed. The retired Iwa Jonin muttered, "Stupid little pain in the ass," but Kakashi cut him off. "Is that about your student?" His words made me laugh, that much was clear. She sighed again. "You mean my cute niece who kills people?" "Yep." He said it in a sarcastic way, "Sounds like a lot of fun." "I'm surprised she made it past her 8th birthday with how often I wanted to wring her neck," Jizenka stated. "She's always been a rebellious child, and then she pulls crap like this." "Sounds like my own little Avenger, Sasuke," Kakashi laughed. "Thank goodness, he seems to have calmed down." Jizenka said with a sarcastic deadpan, "Lucky you." "Anyway," the copycat said in a serious voice. "Are things ready?" "My mantises are all over the place," Jizenka said. "We'll know if they see any of our sights." "How's your end?" "My ninkin are all over the place," said Kakashi. "If Orochimaru or the traitor Yukushi Kabuto shows up, they'll immediately start causing a ruckus." Jizenka raised an eyebrow and asked, "Dogs?" "What the heck, I guess it works." "Oh, just wait." the copycat said with a smile. Sasuke was the lighter of the two sleepers, so he was the first to wake up when someone knocked on the door. His eyes were cloudy with dust, so he blinked and looked over at Naruto in the other bed. The stupid guy was still sleeping soundly. How could that jerk? As another round of knocking echoed, Sasuke's eyes got narrow. He groaned as he swung the blankets over to leave the comfort of his bed. This better be good. He stomped toward the door with an angry look on his face and opened it just as the burglar was getting ready to knock again. In normal situations, Ino would have been thrilled to see Sasuke answer the door. It wasn't one of those times. He looked down at her with rings around his eyes, bloodshot eyes, and hair that was a mess. All the Yanamaka could do was nervously laugh at the sight. He really looked like he was ready to kill someone. She said, "Ah, hi Sasuke. Kun." She was hit by the door. Ino went on with a sigh. "Look, I need to talk to Naruto. It's really important." After a minute of silence, Sasuke started to yell. After another moment of silence, there was a loud bang, and then Naruto's voice came over. "Holy hell, asshole. Did you really need to throw a chair? Hey, wait. Don't you dare go back to bed. I'm not done with, oh. Okay, just put the hands down. No need for fire jutsu." Naruto laughed nervously as he closed the door quietly from behind. Once he was out of range of the Uchiha, he muttered under his breath and rubbed the knot that was starting to form on his head. He let out a sigh when he saw Ino, though. Gods, he was so scared about this. He asked, can I get dressed really quickly? To put off the conversation for as long as possible. A woman named Yanamaka rolled her eyes. The Naruto gulped and said, "I know what you're doing. But, yeah, go ahead. Just hurry it up." "Yes, ma'am," he said. The bright blonde almost somehow went back to his room. While she waited, Ino looked at her nails. They were really dirty. For sure a manicure once. She was thinking when someone yelled. "Oi, Teme, chill the hell out. I'm just trying to get dressed. Quiet. Boo. Who? I was the one watching Sakura Chan and you while you were, quickly. It was like, ha. Missed. Poor alarm clock had no, then something broke, and there was silence again. Yamanaka heard steps and then a door handle turning. Naruto walked through the doorway wearing clean clothes that looked like they were just bought. His shirt was black, his pants were blue with spirals on the shoulders, and his shirt was blue. His pants were black with blue patterns and trim. On his forehead, there was also a rough outline of the base of a lamp. Even more, Ino might have been sure she saw the maker's name there if she had really looked hard. "Right," Naruto said, his voice hurting. "Let's hurry before Sasuke decides to throw the microwave at me too." Tayuya asked, "What's with the bitch in the barrel?" She and the other members of the Sound Four sat around the barrel with the seals on it, waiting for the most recent person to awaken who had been cursed by Orochimaru. Both Kabuto and their master were watching the process and were very interested in the barrel. Usually, neither the Sannin nor his right handman would bother with what was normal, but Komoruta Shizuka wasn't like that. Once they were awake, they couldn't tell what would happen next. The Sound Four were all very dangerous, but the Gensmi was stronger. Not after what the cursed Void Seal hurt it. Kabuto quickly explained, "We're going to use her interesting traits." The redhead said, "Well, wasn't that fucking descriptive?" Adding, "She looked pretty worthless," Sakin said. "Her Kekkei Genkai suggests otherwise," Orochimaru told the team, which made them pay attention. Shizuka Chan's Dojutsu is so powerful she wears specific eyewear to ensure she maintains control of it. Do not underestimate her. Then Kabuto spoke up and stopped Kitamaru, "She can't be." And Kabuto replied, "Yes, she is strong enough to challenge Kimimaro." Kun. This was said before the spider. Like ninja could write something down. Especially after the cursed seal was applied. The barrel exploded, sending pieces flying around the room and filling it with smoke, cutting off their conversation. The Sound Four jumped into ready positions, but Kabuto and Orochimaru stayed calm. She then charged out of the fog at the medic with 4 eyes. As soon as she got close to her target, Jirobo appeared next to her and punched her, but the illusion broke like glass and then turned into snowflakes of chakra. She came out from behind Sakin with a knife ready to stab him in the head, leaving a trail of light behind her iridescent eyes. Kitamaru, on the other hand, blocked his ally's attack by throwing many golden kunai at Komaruda, but they were able to pass through the ghost. Genjutsu Specialist. The ninja who looked like a spider said. The Sound 4 walked back to back, looking around suspiciously in the dark for any sign of the Gensmi. They were not her target, though. Shizuka came out of Orochimaru's shadow like a swimmer breaking the surface of the water. She had her balisong ready to stab the Sannin in the head. She then fell to the ground, writhing in pain and biting her lip to scream. The snake. Man told her, "Ah, Shizuka. Chan, it was nice try. I'll give you that much," as he watched her slowly stand up. It was even beautifully executed. You put my guards on the defense so they wouldn't react in time to stop your attack. However, you overlooked one very important fact. I'm the most dangerous person here. Shizuka asked, "What did you do to me this time?" Her angry green eyes had an eerie glow that seemed to go straight through his head. You're predictable, Orochimaru said as he slowly circled and looked at the Komaruda as if he were judging her value like a gallery would a sculpture. You're a dangerous attack dog with a grudge. As soon as you get off your leash, you'll bite anyone in your way. But that's okay, I need dogs like you. Because of this, I decided to take precautions while you were out of it from applying my cursed seal. I put some of my snakes inside your body. And when I feel like it. He raised his hand, and Shizuka fell to the ground like a bag of potatoes. Her body burned with pain, but it left as quickly as it came. She shook her hand against the ground and slowly rose, staring the snake. Like threat with sword. Like intent. You can suffer a lot. Even die, the defeated Sannin said. But again, I need your skills. I hate you so much, Shizuka growled through clenched teeth as she leaned against a wall for support. The snake. Man laughed and said, that makes sense. But anyway, I'm going to make some rules. If you don't listen to them, the snakes inside you will punish you. Depending on the crime, it could even be dramatic and maybe even messy. It would be sad if your aunt had to use a sponge to clean your body off of a wall, wouldn't it? Fine, Shizuka agreed with a biting grin, feeling the snake's tail writhe just under her arm as if to warn her. It was a gross feeling. What are the rules, hubby? Teme? First, you won't attack Kabuto. Kun and me, Orochimaru said, ignoring the insult. His subordinates looked like they were about to stomp on her. Secondly, you won't break our orders or tell anyone anything sensitive. Easy, right? Shizuka spat at him in anger, but the Sannin dodged lazily and the wet projectile hit Sakin in the eye, making his friends laugh. It looks like she doesn't want to service Orochimaru. Sama, Kabuto said with a laugh as he walked up to his master. I can see why you were so careful. As your first job, the Snake Summoner said, you will capture Team 7. Every single one of them. How about, not no, but hell no. Shizuka's face hit the ground in pain again, even though the snakes moving inside her body told her otherwise. Do I have to go over the rules again? The traitor asked with a laugh. He snapped his fingers and the Sound 4 stood at attention by their master, ready to be told what to do. Orochimaru told them to bind and silence her. I want her back in training area 44 tomorrow morning, he said. She knows what to do. I'm sure she'll follow through. Yes, sir. They yelled and got to work right away. He looked straight into the girl's reptilian eyes as she curled up on the ground and breathed hard because her body was hurting. Komaruda Shizuka had a lot of uses. By herself, she was stronger than the weak Sound 4, which Orochimaru planned to use to his full advantage. The Genzome alone had a lot of potential for trickery, mind control, and distractions. In the worst case, she'd make a great container. This was made even better by the Genzome's surprising reaction to the Ku no Juin, who knew his cursed seals would have an effect on a Kekkei Genkai. The last thought made the Sannin laugh out loud. But Shizuka's main goal in his plans was much simpler than that. She was just a test, a challenge for his future container to overcome. Getting Sasuke, Sakura, or Naruto back was just the cherry on top. Kabuto. Kun, Orochimaru said, keeping an eye on the Sound 4's backs as they tied up their angry cargo. Would you please watch Shizuka? Chan? I'm sure she's mad about what's going on in the world and will probably look for a way to vent her anger. It would be a great chance to watch her Kekkei Genkai. His most devoted servant laughed and said, of course, Orochimaru. Sama. Naruto tried to take his mind off of his problem by saying, man, these clothes are nice. Iruka, Sensei and Anko. Nei really went all out on these. But, why do they feel so heavy? It was strange for Naruto that every time he thought of his sister, he felt like he was walking on his grave. Someone clearing their throat woke up the Jinchuriki from his thoughts. He groaned as he remembered what had happened. Naruto and Ino hid just outside the compound, being careful to stay inside so that they wouldn't be accidentally targeted by another team. They would have liked to have the conversation inside, but they didn't know if someone would hear it. Naruto didn't want to take any chances because the secret was so important to him at this point. As Naruto paced back and forth like a pendulum, Ino sat on a big rock and watched. Her chin rested on her intertwined fingers as she carefully watched every move and emotion he showed. Since Yamanaka had studied psychology since she was a child, she found it interesting to see her fellow blonde go through so many emotions. Even though the Uzumaki was a jerk back at the academy, Ino had to remind herself that everyone had more than one side to their personality, and Naruto was no different. At that time, all she saw from him was stupid happiness. But if she weren't looking at Sasuke so much, she might have been able to pick up on more. Naruto stopped and took a few deep breaths to calm down. Then he turned to the other blonde and asked, "So, what do you want to know?" He thought that Ino might never have to know the truth if he played his cards right. "What did you do? That bone guy was out of reach, but you beat the crap out of him with that weird chakra," Ino asked, leaning forward in anticipation. One could hope. Well, The Uzumaki had to take a deep breath. "I'm not sure myself." "What do you mean about, I'm not sure?" The stupid jerk wouldn't give Ino a straight answer, and she looked angry. He said, "Well, that was the first time I used that. That wasn't a lie at all. I didn't know I could do that hat-red little thing." She pursed her lips and said, "You know what caused it?" It wasn't a question. "Well, I have an idea. That didn't work, so let's try something else." He kept hearing in the back of his mind, someone's trying to worm their way out of a situation. "Shut up," Naruto said, but his anger showed on his face instead. "You're not helping." Ino got the wrong idea from his look. "So you know exactly what it is. Don't lie anymore. You're bad at it." Uzumaki made a face and tried to ignore the Kyubi's sly laughs that were coming from inside him. "Alright, fine." His hands were thrown up in frustration as he said, "I have the Kyubi sealed inside of me." There was silence, and then Ino glared at Naruto. "Damn, that wasn't funny. I'll use my Shintention if you don't stop making fun of me." He shook his head irritably and said, "I wasn't joking that time." "Fine, I'll play your stupid game," Ino said with a frown. "Then how in the hell would you fit a demon the size of a mountain inside of?" Naruto pulled up his shirt and channeled chakra, showing a sun shaped tattoo in the shape of a spiral. She stopped all of a sudden, and Ino's eyebrows flew into her hairline. "The same way you put a kunai into a piece of paper," Naruto said in a serious tone. "With a seal." He lowered his shirt and the design disappeared. "Did you know that I was born on October 10th? What did you do that day?" "The Kyubi attack," Ino said, his eyes wide and his body shaking. Uzumaki looked pleased. So, when the Yondaime couldn't kill the Kyubi, he had to figure out another way to save everyone. Ino breathed out. "So he put it inside of someone." Her eyes showed how shocked she was. There was a pregnant silence between them as one waited for the other to react while the other took it all in with shocked disbelief. "That explains so much. Why the adults don't like you. And why. We were always told to stay away from you," the Yamanaka finally spoke up. She pulled her knees to her chest and rested her forehead on them to show how ashamed she was. "Yeah," Naruto said, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. "I don't really understand why, mind you. Some people were mad at the Kyubi and took their anger out on me instead. Thought I was the Kyubi by some." Mizuki came to mind. "Before the traitor died a horrible death." She was shocked and looked up. "Why? How did they do that?" The Jinchuriki just shrugged. It astonished Ino that Naruto could be so nonchalant about the village's hatred towards him. What kind of mental fortitude did it take to withstand so much hatred without breaking? It was mind-boggling. "But, you're not the Kyubi." He smiled a lot at the academy, but now that she saw them again, they seemed fake and forced, like he was trying to lie to himself. How could she have missed it? She used to chew on psychology scrolls when she was a baby. But the smile she got now was so real and warm. It was Naruto's real smile. Ino enjoyed seeing the face behind the mask and thought about the real Naruto. I wish more people thought that way, he said. Were those tears on the edges of his eyes? Again, Ino wondered why she hadn't paid more attention in the academy. She had been aware of her flaws since the start of the exam, especially when compared to the monsters. But now she really felt them. The fact that she had missed something hidden like the real Naruto and something she had been trained to find was just another example of how badly she had done. She would make it up to him some way, but a journey has to start with a step. No, you can't be the Kyubi, she said with a sly grin. You are too much of a jerk. Oi. That's not cool. You know what, she's right, the fox said. Your brain is missing. Well, everything. Stop ruining the moment already. Stop picking the Kyokagen over me, and I might be a little more friendly. Naruto shook his head to get her voice out of his head. Another moment of silence followed. This time, though, there was some comfort between them. That being said, Ino seemed shyly interested when she spoke up. So, what does it look like? What does that look like? The Kyubi. Oh, Naruto said as he put his finger to his chin to think. Well, she has red hair. Eyes of ruby. Perhaps a little taller than I am. I would say. He thought for a moment and bobbed his head. A D. Cup. Ino threw a pebble at Naruto, and it hurt his cheek when it hit it. That wasn't funny either. The sunny blonde rubbed his hurt skin. Listen, I'm telling the truth. What is the Kyubi? Naruto's widening eyes were the only sign that something was wrong. He threw her over his shoulder and jumped backwards before she could ask anything. The same way that a crater was made when sand hit something. Once Uzumaki came to a stop, he used his free hand to wipe off the dirt that was sticking to him in an odd way, while cursing his luck to himself. Can't I get a break from someone trying to kill me for more than day? Naruto cried anime tears as he lamented. Naruto, what the hell is going on? Ino asked while thrashing around on the boy's shoulder like a fish trying to get away. Let go of me, you pervert. The other blonde told her, stop moving around. Uzumaki Naruto, a new voice said abruptly. I see you've passed the second exam. Uzumaki said, sup, Gaara, and turned to face the red ghoul that was following him from behind some trees. Temari and Kankuro stood far behind their little brother, as if they were trying to avoid getting in trouble with their sibling. Naruto didn't miss or like the fact that they both looked scared. At the worst possible time, Kyubi showed up from behind his back. Naruto. Kun, I should warn you. Gaara grinned crazy wide, and all of a sudden, his eyes turned golden with a star-shaped pupil. Killing intent flooded the area, and the torrent was so strong that it would drown anyone with a weak constitution. When Temari and Kankuro got scared, they ran quickly into the forest, where they felt safer. The Uzumaki, who was only partly listening to his prisoner, said, I don't like that smile. Yes, about that smile, the Kyubi went on, with a hint of worry in her voice. She wasn't scared of the crazy Tanuki, but Naruto wasn't completely unbeatable either. See, Shukaku, the Ichibi, doesn't really like me. The demon shut itself up in Gaara. You remember that, right? Naruto looked at the sand spiraling around in the air with worry. Something like that is hard to forget. Go to the point. What the hell are you talking about? Ino snapped because she couldn't see what was going on. Damn it, Naruto, what's going on? The Kyubi and Naruto didn't pay attention to her, but the fake human kept going. Both Bij can feel each other. This isn't usually a big deal. The other person, Shukaku, who can sense me through you, is crazy and wants to kill his brothers and, by extension, their containers. I would start running if I were you. Motherfu. A wave of sand came up and hit Naruto and Ino. He stopped in the middle of his curse. The teen with the golden hair and skin turned around and used a lot of the Kyubi's chakra to jump to safety as the wave hit the ground. What the? Ino watched as sandstorms shot towards them. When she saw Gaara acting crazy, her eyes got as big as dinner plates. Go faster, faster, faster. You aren't running fast enough. Naruto jumped as high as he could, dodging the tendrils as they poked through the ground and hitting the walls of the compound with his souls. Putting all of his chakra into his muscles, Naruto quickly climbed up and away from the crazy Jinchuriki below. The Yamanaka suddenly said, left. The person who wanted to save her did what she said, barely avoiding a sound fountain. She yelled, "Right." Just like before, he barely made it past another grit mine. 3 incoming. Rush 3 o'clock to dodge. Naruto was shocked at how accurate her prediction was, but he wasn't upset because they were going to make it out of this alive. Naruto made it to an open window with a big smile on his face. Just to be jerked back as all the metal on Ino and him suddenly jerked the other way. Naruto sucked in all of his strength to make sure he didn't drop Ino by accident. The sudden feeling made Ino yell. "I forgot," Naruto gaped and growled through clenched teeth. He clung to the walls so hard that the concrete beneath his feet broke. "Bastard, has, Keke Genkai." When she was taken off his shoulder, Ino screamed. Before she could get away, Naruto grabbed her wrist and quickly put his other hand on it to make it stronger. The Uzumaki let out a grunt of effort as he held Ino so tightly that he was almost breaking her bones. Please, don't drop me." When Ino looked up at his ruby, slit eyes, he begged. She wasn't scared of him, even though he looked scary now. Instead, the fact that Naruto was ready to do anything to save her made her feel better. She cared a lot more about the sand below, which she noticed offhand was strangely quiet. Naruto said with a grunt, "Won't happen." Gaara was angry down below them. He really didn't want to use Jishin, but his target was almost free. He had a lot more chakra to use than just controlling his sand, but his fellow Jinchuriki had to stay here so they could feel alive. Yes, that's right. In his mind, Shukaku laughed. "Give him our sand to eat. As you kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. You won't get away, Uzumaki," the redhead growled. Genin grinned at Ino and said, "Idea. Drop all metal weaponry." "Alright," she said. She used her free hand to open all of her kunai pouches and hidden pockets that were full of weapons and then threw them all out. Which shot off quickly toward Gaara. The crazy Jinchuriki couldn't act quickly enough. Several rocks were thrown at him so hard that they launched him into the forest behind him and broke several trees. When Naruto and Ino lost the force that was pulling them toward the ground, they shot into the air like a rubber band launching from a finger. They both squealed with excitement at the sudden speed. They flew through the air and landed on the roof of the compound. Besides gasping for air like goldfish outside the bowl, they were both quiet for what seemed like a very long time. F-sharp and gasp. My, gasp. Life, gasp. Naruto finally let out as he lay on the roof with his arms spread wide. "How many murder attempts is that now?" Ino, who was still excited, asked. "Lost, gasp, count." The Uzumaki pulled in a few deep breaths to clear his throat. "Okay, how much metal do we have on ourselves?" "'Cause there's no way we were pulled that hard by our kunai and shuriken." Even though Naruto couldn't see it, the Yamanaka turned red. "I'm sorry. Email chain. It's all over my body. I began wearing it after you hit me." "Well, that explains you." The Jinchuriki frowned and put a frayed sleeve over his eyes. This made him immediately realize what was wrong. "Oh, that's why these clothes were so heavy. My friends Anko, Nei and Iruka. Sensei bought me clothes that were woven with metal. It was meant to give them extra safety." What a twist. A few seconds ago, it almost killed me. Can we please get the hell out of here before he comes back? As the adrenaline buzz went away, Ino let out a grunt. The pain was coming in waves. "I think you broke my wrist." Sanuvabich, Konkuro took a deep breath and looked at the path of destruction that Gaara's launch had made. As Tamari ran up to her brother, she felt her eyes get really big. "Oh my god. Did they really make it through that?" Her brother agreed and said, "No shit." The oldest admitted, "To be honest, I'm starting to doubt the plan. If those are genin, then what the hell are the rest of Konoha's forces like?" "At least we know who Gaara wants to kill," Konkuro said. Tamari himself was impressed. The 2 Konoha genin had made it through a fight with Gaara, even when he used Jishin. Not many people claimed that score. Even more so if they had that much metal on them. It would be interesting to talk to this Naruto guy. Their youngest brother or sister stood in the trench he had dug and stared up at the sky. He wasn't badly hurt, even though his sand armor had a lot of kunai and shuriken sticking out of it. Even though it was the last second, Shukaku had used chakra to make his Suna no Yoroi so strong that his skin didn't break. Gaara believed he had passed away for a single minute. He wouldn't have been able to normally defend himself against such a sudden attack. He was still alive though. Yes, still alive. His siblings moved away because the thought made him smile so big. Then it turned into a laugh, which got worse until it was psychotic laughter. He had never felt so alive. To be close to death, to feel the fear of dying, and then to come out of it alive. How would it feel when he finally fed his sand to the enemy he had chosen? Gaara's laugh got quieter. Yes, Uzumaki Naruto, you'll truly make me feel alive. The Sound 4, led by Saken, moved through the canopy of Training Area 44, getting around the Anbu that were patrolling the perimeter. Orochimaru's elite guard moved quietly as they did their job, which was to send Shizuka back into the Forest of Death so that Orochimaru could reach his goals. Tayuya was kind enough to point out that the mission wasn't ideal with her constant bad language, but who were they to question their leader? Shizuka was bound, gagged, and blindfolded and slung over Hirobo's shoulders. She stayed quiet and did not move. She planned to change that right away, though. When the idiot stupidly let her go, Shizuka planned to take some of her growing anger out. The four didn't know that Yakushi Kabuto was following them because he was just out of their range of perception. He and Orochimaru were interested in what Shizuka could really do. She got the curse seal, and her Kekkei Genkai responded strangely to it. The four-eyed ninja was sent to watch how she did. I wonder if they know how dangerous their cargo really is. He thought something funny. As Saken stopped, he said, "This'll do," and his friends did the same. Shizuka smiled to herself as her feet hit the ground. The fiery redhead started her attack as soon as Orochimaru's goons took off her blindfold and undid her chains. Her butterfly knife flipped into place right away and then spun around, cutting Tayuya, Jirobo, and Kitamaru's arms. Only Saken was spared harm. It didn't hurt their performance, but it made the bodyguards move back. I thought we were on the same side. Jirobo barked and put his paws on the ground. Hey, fat ass. What Tayuya said. Does the little bitch look like she's on our side? Shizuka laughed a little. The same side? Yes, I see. It's against the rules that I work for the snake. Bastard and his butt. Monkey to disobey them or attack them. I also have to keep the fact that I work for them a secret. Where does it say that I can't kill you four to get back at you? It made Saken laugh. Are you sure you can beat us? That's really nice. We are the Sound 4, the best guards for Orochimaru. That's great. That means you won't kill yourself right away for me, she replied in a sarcastic tone. I needed a chew toy, or a few, to work out my frustrations on. Motherfucking bitch. Tayuya growled and took out her flute. I'm going to stick your remains in a jar of formaldehyde, and then piss in it. Komoruta closed her eyes and slowly took off her welder's goggles while she smiled in a dangerous way. The Sound 4 tensed up because they knew there was strong dojutsu going on below the glasses. They had been told that Shizuka Komoruta could be dangerous. Kabuto said that the redhead should be able to beat Kimimaro, and everyone knew how strong the last Kagaya was. In this fight, they couldn't take chances. Didn't Orochimaru tell you? She asked them with longing and held out her arms wide as if to call them. Tell us what? Kitamaru cut out. The spider. Like shinobi opened its eyes. I only blinked. She was holding the sides of his head, making him look at her as if she were telling him to. Didn't he tell you how weak you really are? Shizuka spoke up. Hell broke loose.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.